Good evening, everyone. Would like to welcome everyone to the Monday, November 18th, 2024 regular City Council meeting. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. Okay. Okay, folks, we got some great stuff tonight. Put them in a corner a minute. We've just recently completed a Service Saturdays project, and we've got a lot of the folks in the audience that helped us out. Just so you know, if you don't know, Service Saturdays is a program that we instituted a while back that helps some of our folks in the community with their homes, and we tried to have volunteers to come out and help us out with that, and we had a great turnout last Saturday on our Service Saturdays project. We've got several businesses that we want to recognize, and I'm going to do that down at the podium. That's great. Put some WD-40 on that thing too. Yeah. Okay. As I said, we had our Service Saturdays project last Saturday, and we have a few folks that we'd like to recognize for being a part of that with us. I don't see a few of the folks in the audience tonight, so we'll hold those over and we'll get that together. Okay. First, I'd like to recognize some of our businesses that we had. Matt Helms, if you would, please. I'm trying to find yours, Matt. I thought I had it in more order. There's yours. You know how informal we are. Mm-hmm. It's going to be at the very bottom. I'm looking. You know that, right? There it is. Look at that. Told you. Very bottom. So, Matt, just like to tell you, we really appreciate you coming out. Matt is the owner of Top View Tree Care. He does a fantastic job for us. He took down 7 trees, something like that, and helped us to get some dead trees out of Mr. Clifford's property, and just did a great job for us. And just want to recognize you and your company for doing that. Thank you for your generosity, and thank you for helping us take care of TUK. Appreciate you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Byron, I don't see Byron tonight. Okay, we'll get Byron's. Casey's not here either. Bob's not here either. Ron's not here. Okay, all right. Well, I guess we got to get our other folks. Okay. Molly and Scott are not here tonight. Okay. Dr. Paul is not here tonight. Okay. Tiffany. Mm-hmm. Can y'all come on up here? The Vickers clan. We really appreciate you guys coming out and helping us with our Service Saturdays project. You guys did an excellent job. And thank you, kids, for coming out and helping us out. You guys did a great job. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it.
You guys are awesome.
Mike and Holly Godwin. Now, Mike's my carpenter help. He tackles the projects that a lot of us don't want to, and I appreciate you for doing that, Mike. And you guys did a great job, and I really appreciate you guys doing what you did. Thank you so much.
I'll get all up on the mayor.
Yeah, man. Pete and Jim. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you guys have been together for what, like 30 years? Pete. Jim. And these two guys, these two guys were some of the first on the bandwagon just to help us out. And, you know, we're all neighbors, but we are really neighbors. And I appreciate you guys putting up with me for as long as you have. But these guys are always some of the first guys to jump in and say, hey, yeah, if you need a hand, love to give you a hand. So I just appreciate you guys doing that for us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Can I get a picture? You had to wear that ugly shirt tonight, didn't you? Representing. Cade? I didn't see Cade down here. Okay. And Whitney's not here. Dusty's not here. Melly's. I got a whole lot of hand delivering I got to do, folks. But I just want to say again, thank you very much for your time, your dedication that you offered to us for our Service Saturdays project. It means a lot to not only me, but the community as well. It's just a great way for everybody to get together, meet your neighbors, and helping another neighbor, and give some blessings back to those folks in the community that could be blessed. And not only that, but you get a bigger blessing yourself when you help others. So just want to say thanks again, and I appreciate you folks. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh,
No,
I
you
forgot
want
this
the
guy.
one-handed.
I forgot this guy.
That's all good.
Councilman Carter. I called Councilman Carter, and he comes running and comes over, helps us out and everything. So I appreciate him coming out and doing that for us. Thank you, Councilman Carter. I'm sorry, man. I didn't even forget you. Oh, Mr. Clifford. Yeah, I'd like to introduce Mr. Clifford as well. Mr. Clifford was so gracious to let us come over and help him out and do us. I said, come on down, Mr. Clifford. We got some more to do, so if anybody wants to jump in and help us some more, come on. We got plenty of stuff that we can put people to work for. So, Mr. Clifford, thank you for letting us come and give you a hand.
Thank you. The house looks so great. I appreciate all that hard work. It looks real good. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Okay, thank you. You have a lot of faith in me. Thank you. Is that good? Wow, the month of October was a busy month for our city. After Catawba Fest, we jumped directly into Booze and Ghouls Trunk or Treat. The mission statement of the Trunk or Treat is to provide a safe alternative to street trick-or-treating, especially for the kids in the peninsula where there is street parking and limited lighting, and most of the time, no sidewalks. The event is very simple. Tailgaters DJ partnering with the Lions Club with their annual costume contest and fun. I appreciate the finance department, IT department, police department, fire, and of course, my department, Parks and Rec, for supporting the event by setting up a trunk and handing out candy. We even hosted a blood drive where vampires took the arms of over 20 participants. With just 25 tailgaters this year, 5 less than last, I was concerned it was an event that the community would not sink their teeth into. An event becomes annual in its third year. So next year, we will have to answer the question if this is an event the community would like to continue. I would also like to thank Councilman Hyslip and Councilwoman Miller for taking time to come out and hand out candy and supporting this event. We had amazing prizes for 12 costume contest winners, best employee trunk, and even best overall trunk. Some of our sponsors were super exciting. We had Santa Claus, a visit with Santa, Edward Jones, Jacob Broom, Club Pilates, Play It Again Sports, TKK Coffee, Super Chicks, Mr. Putties, Tully's Pet Control, Pest Control, sorry, Mike, not Pet Control, Orange Theory, TKK Tavern, and even Sir Purr popped in and gave us a treat. And more. In the early part of this year, Dustin, Parks and Rec Director, and I had spoken at length about creating an event. Oh, sorry, pictures. Sorry. Charlie, I'm sorry. There's your blood, suckers. We partnered with the Lions Club, their annual costume contest. And we had an exciting crowd. Super happy to have everybody join in. So now catch up. I apologize for that. After much searching, we came up with an event of pumpkins in fall. Dustin gave the green light, and I reached out to Joe Hedgepath to partner on this endeavor. We wanted to be unique, organic, traditional, and most important, we wanted to promote community family fun. We wanted lots of pumpkins, bringing about Pumpkin Palooza. The concept is simple: to carve a pumpkin and display it along with other jack-o'-lanterns, creating a wall of pumpkin. A fairly easy event. Just bring your pumpkin, set it up. Once the jack-o'-lanterns were brought to the event site, Joe and I ran lights through the pumpkins, creating a glowing show. We even had a lot of help from our city finance. Dana popped in. I have not met a two-brained talent. She's doing finance on one side, and she's very talented and artsy on the other. Our Pumpkin Palooza winners, we had 43 pumpkins, and we were super excited to have our runner-up received a Model A Brewing gift card. Mr. Putties was second runner-up, and the overall winner, was Carowinds tickets for Winterfest. I would like to thank, this is our picture of what our community looks like when we come together. So I wanted to thank the police and fire for being a part of this and creating a great atmosphere for us to have a safe event. The fire department hosted a pancake breakfast and brought pumpkins for the families to enjoy pancakes and then carve a pumpkin. And even we had some other departments get involved. Keith Davis with the fire department donated the hay bale that you saw Dana painting. And we were able to just, get a lot of talent and we just kind of purged on what we had around. People were giving us lights, and we put out lights. And this is what we came up with. We're super thankful. Tracy Champion, she donated the large pumpkin with the TKK teeth. She and her husband were like, oh, we're just going to do that for you. And we're like, that is amazing. And we were just over the top excited and happy with how this came together. And I was especially excited to have this photo right here come about. We had over 500 likes on this picture. It went viral. We had 50 comments. This photo right here is what we are. We're TKK, and we're great together. We're bright and beautiful. I hope this event, we're hoping to grow it to a wall and in that park. This park right here is Memorial Park. Right when you come in, it's the Memorial Park on the left, right? The TKK sign. This belongs to everybody in TKK, right? I live in Cameron Creek. It's my park too. So I wanted to create a place where people can feel comfortable coming to, and it's all of ours and enjoying it. It's beautiful. I really enjoyed it, and I thank you to everyone that participated. I am super excited what December will bring to our city, and Charlie will tell you more about that in his report tonight. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you. So sorry about that.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Mr. Paul Sagan about Main Street.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Brought my glasses so I can actually see my hands. So, yeah, great news. It's been a lot of design, a lot of engineering, and a lot of thought that's gotten us to the point of this design. This initial view is kind of the introduction to what will be the what we call work live units. So a little bit of the design walking through, and really tonight we're going to see just a lot of artwork where we've gone through design and some of the redesign we've put together and some of the reason behind it. Transformative development, so establishing and creating an inviting, vibrant central gathering place for the people of TKK and creating a distinctive concept of high-quality architectural design, central green space, ridge landing, and property line buffers. The rezoning and annexation has been worked through with creating new, with extended public utilities in TKK and York County, and creating new employment and housing opportunities. Community amenities, a walkable urban center, and protected tree and stream areas are all things we look to deliver. Quick thing on Main Street at TKK, and it's still holding that name as the actual developer has held off on that name to share it and is out of town right now. So, but it's coming on the new launch of everything. We look at about 45 to 60 days to have the final full color package to deliver to the town first, and then to the city and Charlotte and York area at large. So Main Street TKK is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to revitalize, create, and establish a vibrant live, work, play community in TKK. Plan will transform the existing vacant land into a new Main Street-specific plan, a balanced mixed-use community with large new public park, residential living, community-oriented retail uses, office space, and amenities. The major community benefits from this project start with the following. The environment restores a previous vacant and/or unused prime piece of land. Community, creating a walkable live, work, play neighborhood. And for the economy, creates needed housing, local jobs, and local economic activity. In this initial site plan, this formal site plan, this shows the overall streetscape of everything. On what we'd say plan left, there are carriage homes and then commercial use, and we'll dive deeper into that. That's going to be a ridge and landing area. That's going to have a small food hall, brewery, and restaurants, and also a landing that we'll dive a little bit deeper into with some of the color. Coming through those large buildings to the top are going to be live-work units over retail, activated boulevards, and a Main Street appeal coming through the neighborhood. And then the lower southern end is going to be single-family living. And a little bit of color. As you can see, the ridge is what I was mentioning, a center lawn. We've got about a 3-acre park centralized in the middle. The Grove, which is a walkable area with connectivity paths. The Retreat, some of the single-family housing, and then Main and Main, kind of the name that's staying in place until that final name comes out for the actual development. Our principles in trying to work through developing and naming and working with the neighborhood is to honor the unique blend of Southern hospitality, Polynesian influences, and natural landscape that surrounds us. Celebrate the warm and welcoming atmosphere where neighbors become friends, and connect with the local environment, embracing the lush parks, scenic walking trails, and abundant green spaces. In some of this initial color with these live-work units, you'll see a main building with a paseo crossing with an elevated pool and amenity area for the live-work units. This is coming over a boulevard, which is the middle area, so that's walkable and activated. And I'll show you that in some of the pictures moving forward. That'll have a leisure area, and the whole boulevard will actually be activated for leisure and use for general walking and general patronage. In this Main Street design concept, you'll see just ideas about the anchor restaurant, the boulevard activation, the pool and amenities for the live work, the landing role for the brewery, anchor restaurants, and then just some activation of the landing and the other view. And we'll see that landing and ridge here in just a few minutes. This is a view from the end of the boulevard, showing across from live work units into the centralized park. From a little bit more elevated, you'll see it's roughly 2 to 3 acres, so it's a big landing and a big park. And then coming across, where you see in the background, is going to be the ridge, which is going to be activated with food hall, brewery, and we'll have some zoom ups of that so we can see it a little bit better in just a second. Coming through here, just a nightlife photo. So you see an amphitheater in the background. We're hoping to have events and centralized place for people at TKK to commiserate. Maybe it's movies, maybe it's movies in the park, maybe it's events, maybe it's music. You know, it could be the Pumpkin Festival, it can be a Christmas outing, it can be a little bit of everything. It's meant to be a landing place for everything in TKK for everyone to use. Coming through here is that anchor looking back at the boulevard with the anchor of a restaurant, and you can see from left to right, you'll see activated with a boardwalk that looks back over into the park of restaurants and nightlife, and you can see some rooftop, you know, again with the thought of movies and family activation and amenity, along with music in the park. It's really kind of a place to post up and have a great view and have a great evening. Coming through here in the boulevard, you'll see the walkability, wide streets, the parking. We've heard from some of the recent developments that are coming in the area that parking is a concern, family is a concern, walkability is a concern. So we've taken that all into great thought when we're coming through and designing this. So we've got walkability, activation on the sidewalks, and then amenitized boulevards with things like ice cream shops, little wine bars, coffee shops, things like that. So it all has a place and all has a destination. The marketplace, this is part of the ridge and the landing, which will be up on the Stonecrest side. So we're split between Stonecrest and Dam Road, about 55 acres in between that space. This marketplace coming off the Stonecrest side will be, if you're familiar with Optimus Hall, which is kind of a landing of food and restaurant and everything like that. To the left will be what we're stationing to be like an anchor brewery restaurant with an outdoor porch and outdoor area, a marketplace that'll have some shops and stores, and then a food hall coming through. So a little bit of the design of the outdoor area. We're really trying to make sure that we don't miss out on the opportunity to make outdoor space integral part of the development. Knowing that that's been missed in some of the new developments, we know that that's such a destination thing for families and people to enjoy the day, not just the hour they're going out to have a burger. So we've really taken that into consideration. Some things with picnic tables and playgrounds and cornhole and things like that, fire pits, you know, things. So it's kind of from coffee to cocktails to be able to deliver something that people can enjoy throughout the entire day. This is the back of the marketplace. So looking back to that ridge, there's some topography. So from the Stonecrest side, the other side of this building, what you saw that said the marketplace. This is going to be the lower end to it. You'll see umbrellas and this coming off the brewery side on the right-hand side. If you see, and I don't think I can zoom, or can you? Okay, so I can't zoom. So you'll see kind of a ridge at the top of that where it says marketplace. That's actually a walkout deck. So coming out from there, there'll be tables and places to go. You can see out over this. That landing, which we've been working hard to redesign, at first didn't exist. We took a couple extra months and a lot of engineering, thanks to Matt over here, and worked through this to give about a 75 by 300 space, almost a football field. So when people come out of these restaurants, come out of these areas, they have a place to sit down, enjoy, and take the day. And one of the things we recently did, and I was explaining to the council, is kind of split these apart. This west side is what we're going to develop first. So this is going to be something that's going to be delivered to the town and settled and ready to go and usable while the rest of the development's still happening. So I think in doing that, we took into consideration not just a mass grading of an entire site to start it, but what we can deliver to the town first for them to enjoy while everything else is being built out. This is a little bit of that design of that ridge and landing. So you'll see picnic table areas, you'll see play areas, you'll see flex lawn areas. Just, again, it's a huge space. If you've been out to OMB and seen their new development, or if you've been to Kingsley and seen that pond, you know, imagine if that pond was a grassy area that you could actually use. So I think we've taken into consideration what we could do with that space to make it better for the people to utilize on a daily basis. We are delivering over 100,000 square feet of commercial and retail, and we want to make sure that it's activated so it's enjoyed and stays for many years. This is a little bit of a graphic on that as far as color, and you can see just the overall space and dimension and how large of a space that is for everyone to enjoy. That's parking in front, and then it shows some of the deck work coming off the main building. So that's got a ridge height that I'll actually see back over, and I'll have kind of a vista of height that'll see back over the park to the other side, which is the east side of the development. Community detail and economic impact. You know, we're going to have a roughly 150 townhome and single family, 225 multifamily at 100,000 plus a square feet of commercial. projected $250 to $300 million project for land development, architecture, and build out. There's a multiplier that's used in projecting direct, indirect, and induced jobs, and you'll see it there at 3.7, which is roughly 1,000 plus jobs to be delivered from the site, which is, it's a phenomenal economic impact anywhere, and we're super excited about bringing it to TK. Lastly, just kind of walking through zoning and council and annexation. That's been worked through. The site development is coming this spring. We are looking to deliver the final mass grading plans for the west side the first week of December. So as long as the city says you did an excellent job, we'll be moving on that. And then you can see some kind of overall timeframes for delivery of what will be the west side residential, west side commercial, jumping to the east side, which is the Main Street Boulevard and the multifamily. And then the closeout is when we're done with all the heavy lifting. There'll probably be a year stabilization after that, but this is just showing a brass tacks of where we are now that we're able to deliver engineering plans that are finished. And that's it. My pleasure. Questions? Yeah.
Council, y'all have any questions for Paul while he's here?
You right?
Is this the same plan as far as the commercial in the residential that you had originally?
Yes. Yeah, it's just
presented?
it's a lot of work to get things engineered. So we've had to move the stream, we've had to move the buildings, move the parking, move the walls. So it's really just been maneuvering in, and the stream's really the biggest part of that. So as they delineate that and devise that gives us all our buffers. But otherwise, the overall bulk of all the decisions that were made before are just being maneuvered into those spaces. But yes, it's the same plan.
Okay. One of the big questions that I'm always asked is what's taken so long? Just in that I thought at least the conversations I'd been part of before said that it was going to start moving dirt in beginning of this year.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So now we're looking at spring of 2025 for that. So can you kind of just give us a little bit overview of what the delay was?
Engineering takes a minute. So, and I think when we're going through it and we're going through the stream piece, that's a FEMA, Army Corps, there's a state thing, and it takes time. And so as those buffers move, I think I was explaining earlier, those buffers move, everything has to move. And I think sometimes people look at it and say, now that moved, can't you just move that? Well, once you move the wall, you move the parking. You move the parking, you move the building. And then you reevaluate all the calculations for an entire site of 55 acres. So it takes time. And then really it was kind of a wild hair that had us redesign that upper part. But I think it's revolutionary to the project. So it was important. It probably took us 4 months. And I don't think it's self-serving. I think it's a deliverable to the town that's going to make a big difference, because that'll be stabilized and usable well before anything else, and everyone can go, this is a wow factor, and there's so much more to come. So that took some extra time, but at the end of the day, we're looking at it and going, this is a lifetime project for us and for you all, so let's do it right. And unfortunately, it just takes time.
Well, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
the renderings are beautiful.
Yeah, we couldn't be more excited. And so that final west side deliverable is going to be, it's targeted for December 6th, and that'll be a mass grading plan. And once that's approved, then we just start moving dirt the first of the year.
So next, December 2026, we can plan on having Christmas there?
I'm going to spend the next 7 years there, so I'm probably going to have Christmas there all the time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Paul, I just want to congratulate you on the nice job on the presentation tonight, and I know that a lot of work's gone into it, and we've worked pretty closely with you over the last few years, and admire working with you. You've done a nice job with this. One of the things that I think is really admirable is how you're putting the commercial space and the things that bring the most value to the community, like the restaurants and the shops and things like that. That's going in first. And those are the things that really will benefit the community. It's usually the opposite we see with a lot of developments, or the fear is that all the housing goes in, the commercial never comes. So thank you for planning it that way. And
Yeah, we
I'm sure
committed
the
to that, and
community will
that's what we're
appreciate it.
delivering. So
Yeah,
we're excited.
Well done. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Okay. And that will bring us to our Arbor Day proclamation, and I'm going to do that down there. Can we get this thing on a turntable? Okay. There you go, put it in the budget. All right. As everyone knows, TKK is Tree City USA. We have been that way for quite a while. And we have another year for Arbor Day. So this is a proclamation for Arbor Day 2024, whereas the city of TKK is celebrating 33 years as Tree City USA, in which we recognize the value of trees to the community and has adopted the act of celebrating the first Friday in December as Arbor Day. Whereas trees contribute to the aesthetics of our community and, when properly cared for, increase property values and beautify our neighborhoods, enhance the livability of our city through filtering of stormwater and air pollution. Whereas it is the purpose of this proclamation on this day throughout the state of South Carolina to encourage planting trees. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and council of the city of TKK, do hereby proclaim Friday, December 6, 2024, as Arbor Day in the city of TKK, South Carolina. We encourage all residents to observe Arbor Day by attending the Arbor Day ceremony, which will be held at the TKK Police Department on the 6th at 2 p.m. The city will be planting a saucer magnolia tree to recognize and honor Lieutenant Lauren Galloway and her contribution to the city, the community, and the residents of TKK. Chief, if you would, please.
Thank you to Mayor and Council for this great proclamation and for honoring Lieutenant Galloway. It is often said that her smile and her hugs often brought a breath of fresh air. So it's only fitting that we're planting a tree in remembrance of her. So I invite you, please, if you will come to the police department on December 6th. If you'll come to the police department, we'll invite you to the back so you can join us for this memory of Lieutenant Galloway. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I've got to center it anyway, or Tim will get on me. All right, and that will bring us to public comments. As always, if you would please state your name and your address. And we will start with Leroy Denton.
Leroy Denton, 28001 Marina Drive. Mr. Mayor, Council, if you folks are familiar with Lake Wiley, and especially around Christmas, you know that there's a Christmas parade that usually takes place at now Papa Doc's and goes up and down Lake Wiley a ways, but it never comes to TK. And after being frustrated with not being able to see a Christmas boat parade, the people who work at TK Marina decided we would solve the problem. So on December the 14th, TUK will have its own Christmas boat parade. It will take place at 6 p.m. It will go toward the dam, then come back and end at Commodore Marina, where there's a clubhouse, and we will have things to eat, and we will have Santa Claus, and we will have pictures for the kids with Santa. They want to do that. There's limited boat parking at Commodore. So we will be running boat shuttles from both Lake Club Marina and TUK Marina over to the clubhouse at Commodore so that they can enjoy that, and then we will bring people back. So I just wanted to let you know that we're doing that. Both the fire department and police department have graciously volunteered to be involved. So, and we are sending out notices to all of our slip holders. For the 3 marinas, that's like 550 boats. So hopefully we'll get some participation from them, but also the people of TGK who have boats at their docks and want to join in. Just call the marina, let them know. We will register you. There's no charge, and we would be thrilled to have you. Any question?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Leroy. Appreciate you.
A great idea.
Thank you.
I'll be in. I'm in.
Thank you, Leroy. You gonna make it the whole route?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I hope. I hope.
Let's get that thing tuned up. Get the old girl
I
running.
know a guy. There you go.
That's right.
Liz Duda.
Good evening, Elizabeth Duda, 1081 Palmyra Drive. I have a few questions and comments about things on the agenda. The first one is related to the American Rescue Plan Act federal funding. I wonder, and I'm sure some of these are questions that you folks will be asking, but I'll just get them out here. Why has the city held on to the $200,000 that council allocated to TKK domiciled businesses that were negatively impacted by COVID? And this allocation was made 2 years ago, so why has the city been holding on to the funds? How will you allocate it by December 31st, 2024, which is required by law, or else the federal government will take it back, and it must be paid out by December 2026. But I'm sure after you allocate it, you'll pay it quickly to the businesses. Who will receive the interest that's been earned on the $200,000 over the last couple of years? That's the first agenda item. Second one is related to Parks and Rec. What is the status of the Parks and Rec master plan? If you have no status, how is TKK City Council determining your Parks and Rec priorities so that you're systematically addressing the needs of all community members and not just ad hoc? And I will remind you, speaking of ad hoc, in 2021, how the kids came before City Council and asked for a skate park. So just putting that back in your thoughts. Regarding Catawba Park and the soccer fields, why are the request for proposals, so the RFPs and bids, not publicly available? How are you ensuring oversight and accountability given that they're not publicly available? How many bids were received? Were there advantages to the other bids? If many weren't received, can you reopen the bid process? And I hear there are 3 companies in Charlotte that can provide the information. Can you hand deliver the request for proposals to them and get back in a fast manner so that it can be taken care of quickly? $1.8 million is a lot. How much in insurance reimbursements are you expecting, and when do you expect those reimbursements? Those are the agenda topics, and I'm checking my time. So I'll add on a couple of things. I really enjoyed the Main Street presentation. Did the developer consider reverse angle parking? So I attended an event earlier in the year, and they showed us that that's a new way of doing it. I've seen it in some other communities. Reverse angle parking, you back in, so then when you're pulling out, it's safer for the pedestrian. So you assume when you're pulling in, you have full visibility. When you're leaving, you may not, so it's better. So pulling out, reverse angle parking, and you can fit more spaces in instead of parallel parking, and backloading. Those are the 3 advantages to reverse angle parking. And then I'll also point out, when you had service Saturday, the Catawba River Keeper Foundation also hosted the river sweep, and we cleaned up the dam, and they'll be back on December 7th from 10 to 12 to clean up the dam again. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Kieran Petro.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council, for giving an opportunity to me talk about the Vrindavan community. My name is Kiran, and my address is 1311 Hubert Graham Bay, TK actually. And I am here to concern, like there is 2 concerns on the Vrindavan village, which is coming into the near to the Vrindavan community. First concerns I have actually, like I'd like to address that there is a traffic which is goes actually there is a exit or in both goes into inside the Vrindavan through channel actually the traffic directly to internal roads, which will increase the congestion of the post safety of the residents, including children. I urge the council consider routing all entry exit traffic through the main entrance of the commercial space rather than using the window and entrances. That's a request. And second is I'm not sure what are the shops are approved on that villages actually. I would like to consider some of the shops which will be user friendly to the community, so that will be helpful for the community. And I'm hearing that some big restaurants or some pubs, something, breweries, something is coming, which makes a lot of noise and which will affect the Wyndham community. So I would like to request that look for the residents friendly shops on that villages. So that's my request. These are the two concerns I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Tunis.
Gus Machunas, 376 Calming Way here in TKK. First, I hate that Paul left because I was going to share with him that it took us 18 years to build Catawba Park, and I wanted to let him know that was not a record that was a good one to beat, and I was wondering if he was trying to get there. But it looks like we're going. I see them tearing buildings down, and things are moving along. So really excited to see that, and the renderings were incredible. So it's going to be a cool project, and it's right in my backyard, front yard, whatever you want to say. I just want to say, it's I don't think a lot of people understand what the five of you volunteered for, until you sit behind that dais. And I don't think you even knew what you volunteered for until you sit back there. And it's real easy, to sit on social media or hide behind your thumbs or your snarky comments. And as someone who has sat behind the dais and also sat on social media with my thumbs making snarky comments, I just wanted to compliment you on the job that you're all doing.
Thank you, guys.
We had a good teacher.
Yeah. Tiffany Vickers. And Ella. All right.
We'll see. We'll see. Tiffany Vickers, 11102 Seven Coves Drive, TK. This is Ella. So we were going to bring something up, and then we talked about Arbor Day. I don't want to cut trees down, but maybe I want to give it a little trim, and I'm sorry. On TK Drive, coming out of Seven Coves, I don't know if you all have ever tried to come out of Seven Coves, but there are 3 giant bushy trees. That makes it super, super hard when you're trying to turn out of there and make a left onto TK Drive. It is tough. I have seen personally just trying to go home from Shore Club or, Rundy, coming that direction, and I'm turning. I can't see pedestrians in that crosswalk. And I know my daughter has had issues trying to even cross, and we got our little flags. We're flying, trying to cross the street. But if maybe we could trim the trees, like maybe we have little narrow trees, or maybe we lift the height of the trees. Like the other trees are great. They're perfect. They're probably about, 5-6 feet off of the ground. You can see a car coming. If you come into Seven Coves and you try to pull over there, you're barely seeing the tires underneath those trees. So it's just something we want to bring up. Maybe we could look at. Maybe they could raise them. I don't know. It's just a little suggestion. Anything you wanted to add? Did I add it for you? You good? Okay. She just wanted to say her concerns. She's almost gotten hit. It's very busy coming through there, and I get it. Everybody's in a hurry and all the things. But if we could just maybe give that, and then we could see the cars coming through, that would kind of help us out. All right? Is that it? Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Marmaja? Manoj? There you go. Sorry, I'm having a hard time with the penmanship there.
Good evening. My name is Manoj Aswani, and I'm resident of Windhaven community. Address is 1709 Wildwood Terrace Trail, TK. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak today. I'm majorly here for majorly 2 concerns. I know there is commercial building being built up in the community, and we hear that there are brewery shop or pubs are coming up, and my home is exactly in front of the commercial space which is building up, and I see this as a challenge for kids' safety and a lot of other things which are unwanted in the community. That's one of the major concern, and the another concern which I see is the traffic, which is kind of going inside the community and not just cutting through the community. I mean, there is a space which is where the commercial space is there, and there is an entrance, and there is one exit which goes inside the community. So those are the two things which raise safety, security. I mean, for kids and for everyone. There are a lot of drunk and driving cases which I just don't want to see in my community. So these are just two major concerns which I want to highlight, and I appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Prayank?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Priyank Agrawal. I'm a resident of Windavan Community, 3046 Windavan Lane. And I have similar concern that my neighbor raised regarding that commercial space, where we got a rumor that there's some brewery may come or a big restaurant may come. So we just want to make sure, right, if there is a brewery is coming, it's a kid-friendly neighborhood. There are kids keep playing whole evening on the road, and there will be a lot of traffic. It's a safety concern for the small kids that play there. And it's not only my concern. My couple of neighbors, there are a lot of my neighbors are sitting here. They all have the same concern. Second thing, I just want to make it notice, my house is just adjacent to the commercial line. So there is a very narrow buffer space between my backyard and the commercial space start. They have planted very nice trees, but it's a single row of tree, and it doesn't provide any privacy. So I request if I can put some privacy fencing, which is, I don't know why TKK doesn't allow the white privacy fencing, but I feel like there should be at least 2-3 dense row of the trees to allow the privacy, and should maybe some exceptions for me just to put some privacy so it can just cut out from the commercial. Because there's if I look the plan, there's exactly the parking lot next to my backyard. So cars are just parked there, and I'm sitting in the backyard, and everyone can see what's happening. So these two things I want to mention. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the time.
Thank you, sir. Elizabeth Duda? Now, you said Liz the first time, and now it's Elizabeth.
Are there any other Lions in the room that will make this announcement? I'm here on behalf of the Lions Club. I would like to note that there is a fundraiser going on right now. It's the 4th annual Howells Stew event, where they are this year donating proceeds to the TKK Lions. This is particularly exciting because it's the Lions' 50th year of service here in TKK. So the Lions are grateful to the Howells for donating the proceeds from the stew event to them. People can go online now and buy the stew. And there's stew for sale. There's TKK hats for sale that are really cute that you guys all saw at Catawba Fest at the Howell tent. Anastasia's making them and selling them, so those proceeds will go to the Lions Club. Thank you to, there's also auction items. Thank you to the police department and the fire department for offering rides to school for kids that they're auctioning off. Those proceeds will go to the Lions. And the stew is delicious. Many of you have tasted it in the event. It's hearty, it's tasty. So please go online, buy your stew, bid on auction items, and enjoy. Thank you so much.
1 second, Liz, 1 second. If you're going to be out of town, or if you can't get to the stew, can we make donations to the Lions Club, and how would we do that?
Yes. So if you can go on the Howell website and do and click through there, and you can make donations there. Or if you want to do it through this event, you can donate at that event, and proceeds will go to the Lions Club. And you can also buy stew for your neighbors. TKK Tavern makes it. I didn't mention that part. They're cooking it up, and so you can pick it up there. They'll hold on to it for you. So yes, thank you. Go on to the Howell website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duda. And that will conclude our public comments. Did want to say that thanks to Brian Howell and all of the good folks at TKK Tavern for putting that on. It's always a good fundraiser, and definitely a good fundraiser for our Lions Club. So make sure you check that out, folks. And that will bring us to approval of minutes.
I forgot my note, Economic development.
No, so we've already got our public comments, our sign-up sheet, and so we've moved on from that. Well, if you'd like to comment, you can, next month, if you'd like, you can sign up on our public comment sheet that's at the front of that'll be at the front of the door next month, because we've already closed out the public comment section for this, but, yep, next month. Okay, that'll bring us to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our regular council meeting, October 21, 2024?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the regular city council meeting on October 21st, 2024.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? In that case, call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Do,
That will bring us to our committee reports. We'll start with Councilman Shirley for the Planning Commission, please, sir. No, you said flip them. Oh, economic, okay.
So,
Okay. So you want Tom to go first? Okay. Okay, Brian's going to go. You guys are going to have to put this on the chalkboard.
yes. Mr. Mayor and members of council, I had the opportunity to attend the Planning Commission meeting earlier this month for Councilman Hyslip. The Planning Commission meeting took place November 4th, 2024. There was a quorum present. It started with public comments, had some good questions there. They then proceeded to discuss in depth the Marina Overlay District and the red line items that they've been proposed over the last couple of months. This discussion went into every detail, if items were needed or if they were justified for any additions, changes, or deletions. They went into a lot of depth. There's a couple of things that they still need to discuss. So at the next meeting, they'd like to have the city attorney attend. And they'd like to have, ask the city attorney a couple of questions in regards to potential restaurants in the area and the restrictions that we can impose for the hours of operation. So that's the thing that they want to do next time, and they should be wrapping this up really soon.
Thank you, Councilman Carter.
thank you.
Now, Councilman Shirley, if you would, please, sir.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I was having trouble finding my notes from Economic Development meeting. On October 28th, the Economic Development Committee met. There was a quorum. There was much discussion about a Business Connect that the commission hosted and will continue to do so, hosting those events, inviting small businesses in and around TGK to attend, which is a great event. And they've reached out to the York County Chamber of Commerce for some guidance and support with reference to generating more businesses back into our community. As you all know, with this Main Street project coming on, there will be a lot of businesses coming into TGK. And the Economic Development Committee has a panel of some really, really sharp folks on that committee that are volunteering their time to try and better our community, bring commercial businesses into our community, and bring revenue to our community to continue to keep our taxes from increasing, which is quite a benefit. There was a representative from the York County Chamber of Commerce that was present for that meeting. She discussed many benefits from the Chamber of Commerce that are available to businesses, current businesses in our community and businesses considering coming on board. They offer business-to-business marketing, leadership development, talent development, attracting, training, and retaining talent. Also, they have a program where they're working with some of the middle schools and high schools in the area, educating students on business employment opportunities in the community. They really are a great resource for our businesses, and our Economic Development Committee is doing a great job of exposing that. There is another Business Connect opportunity coming up. We welcome all local businesses to attend that. Gus, when is the date of that? The 10th? 12th? Sorry. Posted on the website for the next Business Connect. The last one they had, the keynote speaker, was the owner of Model A Brewing, who did a super job of outlining the benefits of owning a business in TGK and the value that he brings to our community. 11th. Thank you, Gus. Really appreciate the work that they're doing, and I really take my hat off to the open minds and creative minds that are on that committee. Thanks for good work.
Thank you, Councilman Shirley. And on we go. The next item is Ordinance 585 violations, or 581 violations. Ordinance 581 was enacted on May 15th, 2023, and established that any motor vehicle that is unregistered, inoperable, derelict, or abandoned on any highway or right-of-way or other public or private property shall not remain parked or stored on the property unless it is inside of a building. The city code enforcement officers have tagged the vehicles in violation of this ordinance and notified the owners through certified mail that the vehicle or vehicles are subject for removal at their expense pending council's approval. This item is to allow council to consider granting authority to TKK Police Department to enter onto the property and tow the vehicles. Prior to granting this authority, we are providing the owners of the vehicles the opportunity to state any extenuating circumstances as to the nature of the vehicle or vehicles being abandoned or derelict. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the TKK Police Department to have the vehicles towed in accordance with Ordinance 581.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Need to see if there's anybody here to speak.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, say it again?
Yeah, before you take the vote, need to open the floor to see if either of those owners are here.
We had to open the discussion, though, with two motions, correct? Okay. So at this point in time, I'd like to open the floor to anyone who has been given a notice of violation. Okay, you come forward.
Name and address, I assume.
What's that?
State my name and address.
Please, sir.
I assume. Yep. My name is Rory Fordham, 27053 Catamaran Drive. Just looking to state that my vehicle is not abandoned or derelict. My understanding of the city ordinance is that it adopts and references South Carolina Code of Provisions. And that ordinance states that any conflict with the ordinance and the provisions, the South Carolina Code of Provisions controls. Going off the code's definition of abandoned or derelict, my vehicle is not abandoned or derelict. And yeah, I don't think it should lose my private property that I pay taxes on. It's registered, it's insured. Just because one individual doesn't like the vehicle. I've spoken with city officials before. They say the city does not go around actively looking for unregistered vehicles. The police department doesn't. They rely on individuals to report vehicles. This has been going on for 10 years with one individual annually calling about my vehicle, trespassing on my property to see, you know, if the tags are up to date. I find it crazy. It's harassment, really. But the vehicle, like I said, I pay taxes on it. It's registered. It's insured. Yeah, I don't think it should be towed and then ransomed back to me just because someone doesn't like it.
Is the vehicle in operable condition?
Yeah, it has all the parts, it has all the motors, it's not missing any parts.
So like you go turn the key, will it crank?
I'd have to put the battery back in it. The battery's on a trickle charger, but yeah.
So if you
It's
did that,
drivable otherwise?
it's drivable.
Yes.
And the tag's good?
The tag's good. It expires this month, but I just got the renewal bill for renewing it today, actually.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, tagged. So.
Okay. Well, if we can prove that to be so,
I mean, I have the plate right here. I've got the registration as well. If you'd like. I mean, I just put
I
the
mean, if you
sticker
say you
on.
got it, I'm going off your word there, that you got it, so. Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
Is there any kind of police report on this that would identify what the registration looked like, or any expired registration or anything? Do we have anything like that, Charlie, do you know?
No, so we'd have to run the plates, things like that. I'm told that this one was flagged because of being derelict, not abandoned. And to my knowledge, I don't know that anybody on staff has received any responses, at least from the last letter of violation that went out, so.
Just reading the language in the ordinance for the purpose of this section, derelict shall mean in very poor condition as a result of disuse or neglect. It sounds to me like the vehicle's not registered. You said it expired?
No, it's registered.
What part did I miss? I thought I heard you say that it expired and you're going to renew it.
Oh, the registration expires this month. It was good till December 24th. So
okay.
I'll have to renew by the end of the month, and then I'll get a new tag in
Okay.
beginning
So
of
it's
January.
current today?
It's current, yeah. It's been current last couple of years, so.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and everything's current on your vehicle. It is operable. You just need to put the battery back in.
Yeah,
and go ahead and go.
battery I
So-
just took out. It's on a trickle charger.
So right now, you just leave it sitting there just to,
It's just, I was planning on rebuilding it with my son, taking it
Okay.
apart, or just kind of a project car in the future, but it's
Okay.
been operable. I just parked it there, just never, there's
Gotcha.
the house to work on, just never got around to the car. So.
thank you for coming today and telling us that. Is there a way to try and get that specific one off the list?
It's totally up to council.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'd absolutely like to take that off the list.
Yeah, so when you do your motion, you can separate because you have two different ones, and he's appeared and given you grounds, and if you don't want to move forward, then you could take no action on that one or take a motion not to tow and enforce that one. But then on the second one, which is wall work, you could be specific with the name of that one and approve it. Does that make sense?
So would I have to restate the motion?
Yeah,
Or do
because
we
I think
just-
y'all made.
We just amend that, right?
Yep, you can make a motion to amend.
Okay.
And do that.
Before we do that, Charlie, do we know anything about the other vehicle, other than the picture?
Nick, do you want? We'll get Nick up.
Thank you.
I think we're probably going to move to make it an exception, but don't run out on us just yet, because I'd like to maybe have a little bit more discussion before we move forward with the amendment. Thank you for coming forward and telling us,
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
sharing that with us.
So I can quickly just explain the ordinance, because this is subjective at the end of the day, which is why I'm sure it was why the ordinance states that it needs to go to council. So there's a couple different clauses in the ordinance. Unregistered is one. Sounds like this vehicle is registered. The other one is, the reason we brought it before you was the derelict definition shall mean in a very poor condition. So that's, like I said, obviously subjective, which is why you guys have the authority to vote on that. So I just wanted to clear that up, just for make sure there was no question.
And Nick, for the other individual, we send a certified letter to the residents, and then does anybody go to the residence itself and knock on the door and talk to the person if we don't hear back from them?
So there is, by the South Carolina Code provision, we post a colored notice on the windshield.
Okay.
Or on the vehicle, and make sure we laminate it and tape it so it's clear that.
It's hard to miss.
In case they don't get the letter, don't open it, that it's clear, with stating they can come to council and speak. Has all the information on there, so.
Any further questions for Nick?
I'm sorry. How do, you said that it's subjective, the assigning of a derelict condition or poor condition. How do we work for that to not be so subjective? Because anyone that, if the case is that it's only brought up when someone reports it, I would imagine that whoever's reporting it has looked at this for a long time and it's become an issue. and they're reporting it. If we're going to have derelict as part of that ordinance, shouldn't we define what that means? It hasn't been moved in 6 months.
So, I mean, you certainly could define it more, but I would, also say that, it's really would be hard to nail down. You have a vehicle, a lot of, the reason this has come before you, we've had multiple complaints. And so.
And I guess I'm saying if it's hard to define and it's hard to implement and it's not sustainable as a specific reason to send out a notice and to have someone show up, then maybe it shouldn't be there. Maybe we need to focus on things that are, quantifiable rather than subjective, and not have neighbor turning in neighbor because they don't like the way that something looks, but because it has been left there and it hasn't been used for this amount of time, or the tires, aren't on it, or the hood's been up for, an extended period of time. Something that is more quantifiable, I think.
Agreed.
Than just an opinion, because obviously my opinion of what my car needs to look like in order for not to be derelict could be very different than someone else's. And maybe it should be more driven by the use of rather than the way it looks. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, and that can certainly be an amendment in the code. I know typically you wouldn't see a vote by council for a code enforcement issue like this in my past, but I don't know the intent. I know this is fairly recent, so I'm sure there's some members that can speak to that. But it appeared to me the intent is so council can make that decision, but there's new members and.
Well, and also, the police department cannot go on private property without probable cause. So that's why, and I'm going to turn it over to our chief of police.
I'm guessing probable cause would be a complaint, right?
So that's, Council, the purpose in your role in this is kind of to determine that subjectiveness piece. So let's say if you go and you say, we're going to say the car has to sit there 3 months. And we get a car or a vehicle that is sitting there severely derelict, hasn't been moved, got rust, so the hood's up on it, and that person has to look at that car. They're calling us every day and saying, hey, this car is derelict, it's an eyesore to the neighborhood. So when we go, that's part of the investigative piece. First off, police are very limited as to what we can do and the scope that we can do by entering that private property. So that's why it goes to code enforcement first. We then assist them with the investigation to get the information they need. But if you will, almost kind of this body is the court. And tonight what you've done is exactly what code is intended to do. You're here to hear the facts based upon what has been presented to us and code enforcement. Us tell you what the condition of the car is, and then you, being the governing body, have to decide, is this applicable for us to tow? Does it meet the criteria? I understand what you're saying by trying to become a more defined process, but that more defined process then limits your enforcement actions and severely handcuffs you on what may be derelict this time but not derelict the next time, and then now you're putting the subjective piece on an enforcement officer instead of the courts, which is what our Constitution is intended to be.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And I can remember when this was added to the code, I know Scott and you and I and the mayor had a lot of discussions up here, concerns about
Property rights.
And individual property rights. And I think this section we're doing now got added to the code for us to be able to look at it and make a decision ourselves. And so still a little uncomfortable with the whole thing myself. And I'm so glad that you came and spoke to us. And looking at this personally, both these addresses are right next to each other. It seems someone may be calling in the complaints, which I'm sure as Nick said, for both of them. And I wish the other owner was here to talk to us. But I still have pause. I look at the second vehicle. Well, it's older. We have no other information if it moves or runs or anything, and I'm still personally very hesitant to take the property without, I wouldn't say due process. I guess this is a due process. They're not here, but me personally, I'm going to vote no on this because I want to give this owner a chance to come and talk to us. Again, if the truck was sitting on blocks and, it was half a truck on blocks or something, okay, I get it. But I'm a little hesitant myself in these two instances. So
I can verify that white Ford truck has not moved in at least 6 years. Because I did some work on a home in that same area, and the truck had not moved then, and it still has not moved today. And this is exactly what we were trying to get rid of in TK, is eyesores like this one that, frankly, I mean, if it's got to come to council, and you've already had a certified letter in the mail, you've already had correspondence with our code enforcement folks, and you still hadn't done anything about it. I mean, after the first time, it should have just been a conversation to say, hey, how about running that joke about auto bail, get it cleaned up a little bit? Could you spend $20 on it and clean it up a little bit, put the battery in it, maybe drive it once in a while? Yeah. With vehicles that are sitting there and they haven't been kept and they haven't been done. I mean, we're not. For me, the whole thing is if you want to get serious about doing a car, bringing a car back to life, and you want to do it, build a building, put it in a garage, rent a space. There's a lot of spaces around that you can rent to do that with. If you're really serious about it, then get serious with it and don't just leave it as a boat anchor in your driveway. That's what the spirit of this ordinance was to me. And in that, if it's been sitting there for years and it hasn't been moved, it hasn't been taken care of, a cover put on it, something, to where you can take care of the vehicle, to me, it's kind of a dead ringer. Anybody else?
Yes. I'd like to make a couple comments. So I agree with Tom that there was a lot of spirited discussion prior to us approving this ordinance, and it was in the spirit of protecting people's property rights. So, Mr. Fordham, I respect what you've presented to us this evening. I am concerned because the picture that I see of this vehicle looks like we've got a fog light that's broken. We've got leaves stacked up inside the push guard, blocking the visibility of the headlights. It looks like the front right tire is flat. In fact, it is flat. I blew the picture up to see that. There's so much mold and debris on the windows that no one could possibly drive the vehicle. There's no wiper blades on the vehicle. This vehicle obviously has sat here for a very long time. Someone in your neighborhood is very upset about having to look at that thing every day. I guess one question that I would have for staff would be, and maybe for Chaplain, is it appropriate to ask how many complaints have we gotten on this vehicle? Meaning this, if I complain about it 30 times, that doesn't count 30 times in my opinion. But if 30 people, individual, unique complaints came in, I'd be interested in knowing that.
No, ultimately you're the judge, but that could go to the relevance of the condition, since you aren't making an on-site inspection. So the more complaints would probably lead one to believe it is in more of a derelict condition. Mm-hmm. And I think you look at your regulation as a whole, that is unregistered, inoperable, derelict, abandoned on any highway. You look at those collectively. And it is for you to make the ultimate decision whether you believe it is basically inoperable and derelict. Mm. But you can do that, and also I think you would go to the weight of the evidence would be, if it's one person that's complained 30 times, you have 30 complaints, but the weight of the 30 complaints wouldn't be as significant if it was from 6 or 7 different people.
Correct. I would agree. That's why I asked the question. I was wondering how many unique complaints there were. And I don't know if we know that.
We've had, since my time here, we've had 2 individuals
Okay.
Correct. So. Yes.
Thank you for that. Out of respect for the sovereignty of property, I'm going to recommend that that I amend my motion on this particular vehicle for a period of 2 council meetings in January, that we reevaluate that the tag has been renewed, has been re-registered, and that a reasonable effort is made to create a more sightly appearance of the vehicle. Is that fair?
So to be specific, we're talking delay, council, your motion is to delay any action on the first one until your January 21st meeting?
That's correct.
Okay.
Is it the first or second one?
On the first vehicle.
The Range Rover?
Yes.
The range.
Yes, on the Range Rover.
Okay. And the Ford is this gentleman's.
Mr. Fordham, yeah.
Got it.
I'm recommending we delay a decision on that until the January council meeting, where we have an opportunity to inspect that he has in fact renewed the registration and makes an effort to improve the visible condition of the vehicle.
So for clarification,
Is that reasonable?
Your motion is amended for the first vehicle that you wait until January 21st, but on the other vehicle.
I'm holding the original recommendation on the second vehicle,
And that would be,
on the white Ford.
on the Ford at 27063
Yep.
Catamaran Drive. That's to move forward with enforcement.
That's correct.
And before you make the motion, I'd like to throw out there the potential of giving the other vehicle the same leeway and then handle them both at that time.
Is there someone, a representative, that has interest in that vehicle here?
There isn't, no, and that's the reason. Listen, you never know, right? This is the first time we've done this.
Hey, in the spirit of fairness, I can be okay with that.
It's your motion. I'm just putting out a discussion.
Yeah, I want to be sure that the owner of the Ford, the truck, is absolutely aware. And if we haven't heard from him yet, I just want to make sure that there's something that we can do. I know we put the thing on the windshield and we sent them a certified letter. I don't know if there's a way that we can go knock on the door and talk to the person. I know that you can't go on public. I'm not trying to confiscate the vehicle or anything like that, but just to notify them and just talk to them in general and give them the same leeway that we're
We
giving.
will investigate how we can make additional contact.
Okay.
Or at
Nick,
least
do
attempt.
you know what the registration is on that tag? I've blown it up several times and I can't see what that date is.
On the
On the
Ford
Ford.
is basic. I think the last time it was renewed was 23. So it is
20 what?
23 last year.
So it's expired.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
it's expired. Correct. Right. The
2030.
2023.
Sorry.
23. Sorry.
Yeah.
I misunderstood you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
So we have an amended motion. Do we have a second on the amended motion?
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Let the record reflect that I was a no and everyone else was a yes.
Okay.
So just to clarify, we had some discussion there. For the record, my intent was to delay the action on the Land Rover and to move forward with the action on the Ford.
Correct. Based on what the motion in the second was, we are delaying action until January 21st on 27053 Catamaran Drive, which would be the Land Rover, and we will move forward with enforcement actions tomorrow at 27063 Catamaran Drive, which is the white Ford pickup truck.
And I know what my intention was. I just want to make sure the rest of council knew what the intention of that motion was, because they all voted on it. Make sure you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So put me as a no, because I thought you amended it to not tow both of
Got
them
it.
at this time.
Thank you.
But you thought so too?
I thought we were going to wait on both.
All right, so this wasn't
Okay.
clear.
Let's do a motion.
A recast.
I got a sense that
Yeah, you said in the spirit of you were going to do both and delay it till January.
Sorry, I should have clarified that, because that's why I asked the question about the
Thank you. I'm
registration.
glad you
on
asked.
board. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. That's what I actually thought you were doing too.
Just so we can make sure this is reflected correctly, can we redo and we're
Let's
just
do a
gonna
mo-
pretend this doesn't happen? And what's the motion?
Rewind.
We're
and
going to
the
do a motion.
again.
Hit it, Shirley.
Yeah, we need to do a motion to reconsider. And if you'll, motion to reconsider these two decisions.
Motion to reconsider the original motion to
Reconsider the second.
to delay action on the Land Rover until after, till
No,
the
no.
time of the January.
No, we're just going to do a
We just
motion
need
to
to
reconsider the
just
prior
need a motion
vote.
Consider.
Motion to reconsider the action.
The
on
prior vote.
Ford,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That I'd like to take action, I'd like to recommend we take action on that now.
All right, on the motion to reconsider. So we have a
motion to
motion.
reconsider. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to reconsider. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, I wanted to do discussion real quick. 'cause
We're
I
gonna-
want to make sure I'm clear. So what is
failing-
the motion? I couldn't understand what Scott was saying. Well, no, he
Right
made
now-
it, they took a second.
This is killing
We're
the.
wiping that out.
We're waiting on both.
Waiting on both.
Yes.
We made
All
a
right.
motion to
A motion-
reconsider to erase that.
Okay, yeah, we need to reconsider.
That's
Okay.
right. So we took the eraser to it with the motion to
All right.
reconsider. All right.
Clear as mud, Casey?
All right, Casey's got it.
All right.
My apologies to the gallery on that. I just want to make sure that I'd rather make a mistake and get it right than make a mistake and get it wrong.
Yeah, and why don't we just handle the,
We could just
There
handle
are
on per case
two-
basis.
two vehicles, let's handle them separately.
Yes.
And, because you've reconsidered and invalidated, so now you're going to make a motion for action. And I'd probably do them in order, as they were in your packet. The Land Rover at 27053 first.
So just do the address, make the motion for the address and state the vehicle. And we're gonna postpone that till the January meeting.
All right, I'm going to recommend that we're going to postpone both,
Okay.
just so
We're
you're
doing
clear.
separate.
Okay. So, sorry, I blew this up so much, I'm trying to get it back to where I can read it. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we delay action on removing the Land Rover at 27053 Catamaran Drive until we've had time to reevaluate registration and condition of the vehicle. And we'll delay that until the January 2025 council meeting.
So I have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
We'll second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we delay further action on the Ford in question at 27063 Catamaran Drive until further evaluation of registration and condition of the vehicle to be discussed again at our January council meeting in 2025.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay. On that second one.
So there's 2 nays and 3 yeas. So
Three
it
yes.
passes anyway. Let's go. Boy, y'all are putting Robert's rules to the test tonight.
Well, like Gus said, it ain't easy.
Okay, let's move on to something a little bit better. Okay.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right, this is the second reading of an ordinance 597, an ordinance establishing the structure by which the city attorney is appointed, the scope of services to be provided, and the parameters in which individual council members can seek guidance from the city attorney. This item is in the final reading for council to consider adopting the ordinance to provide guidelines to the city attorney's position. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I'd like to make a motion to approve the second reading of Ordinance 597, an ordinance establishing the structure by which the city attorney is appointed, the scope of services to be provided, and the parameters in which individual council members can seek guidance from the city attorney.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any discussion? Okay, so for those that weren't here last time, this is an ordinance that we have established to where council can speak with our attorney. We wanted it written down on paper, black and white, to where there are no gray spots, where our council can speak with our attorney with city business as we need to. Is that about wrapping up?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
for clarifying that it's about city business.
City business.
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we are going to discuss a possible, just among council, in addition to some committees for us, this is going to be a discussion that we need to open the floor up to for a Park and Rec ad hoc committee. At the request of Mayor Pro Tem Miller, this item is to allow for the discussion amongst council as to the Park and Recreation ad hoc committee's involvement in the rollout of the master plan. Additionally, at my request, the committee's scope to include greenways. So I will open the floor. Carmen, if you would like, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, since.
So when I submitted this, and since then, we've looked at, and I've gone back to look at the ad hoc option versus just establishing this as a standard committee, Parks and Rec committee with the Greenway inclusion, so that it's not specific to a project, it's not specific to a time frame, but it's just like any other of our volunteer committees. And I would like to amend that to be to where we're creating a Parks and Rec Greenway committee / Greenway committee that stands in the same way as our other volunteer committees are for the city. I'm happy to, present as to why those are good considerations. We are a amenity-driven city. We live and breathe our recreation and our parks. And we have an incredible Parks and Rec department, but there's an opportunity for further conversation to involve the community and further volunteer opportunities, further ways that we can improve what is already there. And I know that from the perspective of council, we get stretched and taxed on being able to know all things, and to have a committee that is entirely focused on the bettering of our Parks and Rec department and our Parks and Rec services that we provide for our community, and to include the Greenway, which one of the things that was brought up today, or Greenway and walkways, was the tree line, right? That there's a lot of Greenway and a lot of parks that have, that have trees. And it's just extending the opportunities for involvement in our community where good ideas can be brought together and opportunities can be vetted out, and we can have more of an impact for what defines us, which is our Parks and Rec department.
Thank you, Carmen. I'd just like to add to that, we have a tremendous amount of green space in the community, and it's really hard for our staff to cover it. We've got many areas that we've got tree canopies that are aging, and with the aging trees, we have some dead ones in there that may want to take a look at, possibly some kind of nuance, that kind of thing. And it's really, as far as I'm concerned, many hands make light work. So if we have folks that can help us out and go through these, mark the areas, drop a GPS pin, hey, this one right here, we need to get our arborists to look at. So we don't have, our folks are very busy all the time. And if we've got some volunteer folks that would be willing to step up and say, hey, I'd like to help with the greenways. We've got some projects that we need to do. Hey, possibly Service Saturday projects. We can get in there and do some good in our community with some volunteers instead of city staff. That was just, the way that I was thinking when Carmen brought this idea up. As well as with our parks and everything, we've got our Park and Rec staff. They do a great job for us, and if we can offer them some help as far as on a volunteer basis, I'd love to do that too. So that's just where I was coming from with it and with our conversation.
Thank you guys for sharing that and your thoughts and ideas in regards in regards to behind the ad hoc committee. I'd like to sort of understand who oversees the green space now and the tree canopy and stuff like that that we're really looking to address. And do they really need help right now, or is this something that the city handles itself?
As far as trees in our green space, we don't maintain greenways. To my knowledge, the city has never maintained greenways. Much of our greenways are classified as what's commonly referred to as NUOS, which is natural undisturbed open space. Now, when a resident contacts us and says, hey, I think I have a potentially hazardous tree that may fall on my property, think it's on city property, staff goes out and looks at those. One, to determine whose property it's on, and then to determine what action steps need to happen. I would say it's cyclical as far as the volume and frequency. It just really kind of depends. I do want to point out if you're wanting to go with a permanent committee from the Parks and Rec side, we already have that in the code. So it's just a matter of council wanting to activate that, maybe revisit the code and look at that section. Actually got it pulled up here. It's Article 4, Division 2, Section 2-165. So it was Ordinance 2 from back in 2016. One other thing to possibly consider, as far as the greenway stuff, you've got a relatively newly formed stormwater committee. It's not full. My guess is it's not full because I don't think that committee has met in 14 years because of the way the code is written on what their responsibilities are. I'm not sure that Greenway Green Space fits in with the Parks and Rec folks. Maybe utilizing that stormwater committee. I think Tom and maybe Scott early on had brought up potentially having an environmental committee. I think a couple of years ago that was kind of kicked around for a minute. Might be something for that group because based on what the code has as far as their duties or responsibilities for stormwater committee, I don't know that they're really going to have anything to do. Right now, they are having their first introductory meeting tomorrow night. Nick and Ben Buchanan, who's our environmental and zoning compliance officer, having that kickoff meeting with them, and they're going to vote on officers and that kind of thing. But just some things to consider before we take the next steps. You already have in the code for a parks. I think it's a Parks, Recreation, and Tourism committee. And then that ended up giving way to what ended up becoming the TKK Forever Board. And the Parks and Rec Committee was just kind of defunct, but it is still in the code. So we could update that section of the code and take a look at that. And, again, maybe while you're doing that, maybe the Greenway Green Space duties, if you will, maybe that gets included in the stormwater section of the code for that committee. Just a thought. Happy to proceed forward how council wants to.
I can, Charlie, that environment, we talked about the environmental committee because the stormwater code is very all-encompassing of environmental issues. It's not just stormwater. And so that was one of the reasons we discussed it and maybe take a look at it and see if it covers, because a lot of the stormwater is the leaves and all the other stuff which is coming could be coming out of them greenways.
But there may be some specific duties related to the greenways, green space that maybe you want to add to that if you want to split the two, if you will.
Oh, I got you. Sure.
Yeah, because we can do that with one ordinance covering amendments to two sections of the code.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be two separate ordinances, things like that, because the ordinance is basically the blueprints, if you will, the roadmap from Unicode on how to address or remove or add to whatever you want to edits with the code. So again, just some things to think about. I would definitely look at the Parks and Rec Committee code that's already in there, as we will as well. To where we can have that dialogue and that conversation about, does that section of the code still work, or does it need to be tweaked as well? So, I think you definitely have options depending on which way you want to go.
The Parks and Rec, I think, too, discussion-wise, I think the more citizen involvement we can get, that's giving input to the plans and just discussing and working with the department when necessary, is always great. We just got to get the people there, because we've noticed some of these committees, you don't get a lot of volunteers. Yeah. So.
And it is. It's all about how involved the volunteers are. I think that the Parks and Rec part of it, it hits home for a lot more of our residents. And there's a kind of a vast age range that you're involved in that whole Parks and Rec portion of our city. It is a big opportunity for volunteerism, and I think that was something that we had a lot more of, where people were heavily involved in making sure that we did the best we could with what we had, sort of thing, and that hasn't been as prominent in recent years. It is an opportunity for the community to come together in more positive ways. To have input, and as we're adding on and we're developing this master plan for Parks and Rec, as we're adding on pickleball, as we're changing some of our parks, and we've asked for a capital plan on replacing parks. I think that those are really great opportunities for that community to have their say, because they're the ones that are living it all the time. I don't do playgrounds right now, right? I don't do kickball. It's coming. I know, but it's not my world, but it is other people's worlds, and they're very, very passionate about it. And I think it's an opportunity for us to open that door and let them become involved and be part of the guiding that we have as we move forward with those opportunities for the changes that are coming.
I think one thing that, and this is down the road, if you will, but as council looks to, once the committee is created, looking to fill it, I think it's going to be very important to make sure it's with folks that aren't single-focused, if that makes sense. Their ideas are about the city as a whole, not just their specific thing. Whatever that thing may be. I mean, if somebody, all they want is, I want to see more tetherball at the playgrounds, and, we're not talking about tetherball, well, then I quit, I'm not showing up to meetings. So whatever that thing is, I mean, back in the day when I was doing Parks and Recreation, I had to solely rely on that committee, because I was one person, a department of one. But as our programs and our facilities have grown and our staff has grown to be able to maintain those things, I will say it's been harder and harder to get volunteers to stay engaged. They're engaged at the beginning, and then they kind of, all right, life happens. They get busy, or their specific thing that they're sole interested in or whatever, they just kind of walk away. And we've had that for a number of years. But I mean, if we can get great volunteers that have great ideas and are wanting to come alongside of staff, I think it could be a beautiful thing, no doubt. But just wanted to put my 2 cents in as far as if council does want to go this direction. I think that's key on the appointments, is to making sure that we've got folks that have that key interest, and we've had some of those in the past, and maybe they want to come back around, get the band back together.
Yeah, and I think the flip side of that too is that when you do form the committee, is that they get some very clear direction from staff of where they can be involved. What are the projects? What is the vision of where they can actually impact that Parks and Rec committee, right? What can they do for the city today, tomorrow, next month that the Parks and Rec department is actually working on? So direction from staff and involvement from staff in guiding that each one of those committees, not just the Parks and Rec committee, becomes really important, because you lose the interest when you're not shown where you can make an impact. So it is a two-way street from the fact that these are people that are raising their hands, and they may not be entirely sure what it is that they're raising their hands for, but they have something to contribute. And then when they don't have that outreach from staff to say, hey, this is what we envision. What did you envision? When you raised your hand. If there's no back and forth for that, then you will lose that interest. And then all of a sudden you have committees that are no longer in place. I think that there's definitely opportunity from both directions to really make these committees be something that impacts our city and has a voice for our residents.
I don't disagree, and I think that's where we've got to be very clear, whether it's through an ordinance amendment or whatever, the code amendment or whatnot, because we as staff, or my staff, has to be very cautious because they're just liaisons to those groups. You know, those groups are appointed by council and they're charged with duties in the code. So, you know, it can get, I'm not saying it has been or will be or anything like that, but it just something to be cognizant of as we go through that. I mean, years ago when we had, it felt like a committee for everything, it got to the point where they were constantly coming to council saying, what do you want us to work on? And council didn't have an answer. And at that point, council removed a number of those, most all those committees, because there was nothing for them to work on, nothing for them to get involved with. So I think as we go through the code section and work through this, you know, any potential amendments or whatnot, I think that's going to be key, is to make sure that we're hitting that so that there is no question. You know, if I raise my hand to be on this Parks and Rec committee, I know exactly what I'm getting into because of what the code has told me in that. And then staff is there to help guide, but realistically, they're liaisons. You know, they're not technically in charge of any of your committees.
Well, I would, if we're going to do a committee, I personally would like to hear from, if we're going to call it the Park and Rec Committee, I'd kind of like to hear from our Park and Rec Director as far as what kind of help he thinks he could have. Exactly. Because if we're just talking about the assets themselves, as far as the land, as far as restrooms, as far as just assets, then we're talking, and we're not getting into programming and into coaching and things like that. To me, it would be more appropriate for it to be like a grounds committee or, you know, something along those lines. But
thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good to see y'all. So I'm sitting back there just trying to listen. I think one of the main points that I want to make for the committee is, in reality, I was listening and I still didn't really understand what direction y'all were pushing this committee towards. Was it towards our, like you mentioned, landscaping? Is it programming? Is it, you know, looking at the community and how we update parks, things of that sort? So if I could get a little bit more direction as y'all discuss what this committee's main goal moving forward would be, that would help me, as Charlie mentioned, act as that liaison so that they can continue to move forward. So if I just kind of understood if it's more landscaping or if it's more parks related, in terms of, like, you know, what are residents saying or is broken at the park or things of that sort, is it more that we're just not getting those concerns or, you know, complaints or feedback, I guess is the best way to say it, and y'all are, so we want to create a committee so that they can get passed along to that committee as opposed to you? You know, there's a couple of different avenues. I want to make sure that, you know, I understand what y'all's vision is so that if, you know, y'all decide to move forward with it, I can help this committee move forward. So that's kind of where I'm at in terms of, you know, if y'all feel like that this would be, you know, a big positive for the community and there's a big outreach to y'all are saying that we really would like to be part of this community, then absolutely, I'll put my full effort into it. I just want to make sure that I'm providing that direction that's needed, that y'all see. So if I don't have that, I'd sit at the first meeting and say, all right, what do y'all want to talk about? And that's not really going to get us very far. So that's my question, or my ask to you is, if you move forward with this, just, you know, give me some direction as to where you see that committee making the most impact from. And I was talking with Chief and I said, hey, I know an events manager that's always looking for volunteers, and she will hound that committee if that's what we're looking for, because she's always looking for volunteers. So that's my ask to y'all, and if we can do it, if I can get that direction, I'll be happy to put all my effort into it.
No problem. And personally, I don't want to just sit there and create a committee just to create a committee and then have it fizzle out because of non-engagement. That's not the purpose. And to Mayor's point a little while ago, we'd like to get some direction from you to try and see if there's any help or assistance. I'm not asking for you to give it right now, but any help or assistance that you need in your department to try and make things a little bit easier for everybody there, and then add a couple of things in regards to green space and figure out a way where we can put that in order to make this committee have detailed items that they're focusing on, so they're not just going in there and just opening up and twiddling their thumbs for a while. And that's not what anybody wants.
And I wanted to mention
quick,
too.
Just one second. So just so we're kind of capturing this, putting things in boxes, if you will, is the desire to have this Parks and Rec committee, whatever it's going to call it, also doing the green space, or is there any desire of Stormwater Committee doing the green space, the environmental things, and then this newly formed committee, or brought back committee, whatever you want to call it, focus more on the parks and rec and landscape, that kind of thing?
For me
So I think
personally,
that we need to clear that up.
for me personally, if the green space and everything like that could transition to the stormwater committee, and that could be part of their thing, it'd be fine with me. And then to create a Parks and Rec committee or ad hoc committee, have specific items that that they need to work on before we actually try and commit or create a committee to do that.
And we
I don't
can
want
definitely work on that Parks and Rec side. Just
Well,
trying to figure out
there's-
what eggs we're putting in which basket.
We're not necessarily creating, like you said, it's activating because it's already in an ordinance. It's just not ever, it hasn't been one of the committees that has been manned, but
Correct.
it's already in existence.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's a need for that involvement from our community when it comes to our Parks and Rec, because we are growing those programs, because we have an aging infrastructure when it comes to Parks and Rec, and we're going to be addressing how does that get revitalized. I'm talking, just in that budget discussion, $450,000 to redo Grundy Park. I'm sure most people didn't realize how much money it might cost. It would be good to have community input when we're looking at those types of renovations. It would be really good to have community impact or input, not just from the five of us, but from a group that represents and has their ears and is in those spaces to know what do people want from pickleball? What do the people want from tennis? And I know we hear it, but it would be good to have a third-party community that is actually tasked with researching it, tasked with diving into it, tasked with understanding what new things might be coming. We have Main Street that's coming up. Is Parks and Rec going to have anything there that, residents might want to have an input? I just feel like it is such a huge part of what defines our city, and we don't have anything that allows the community to have a committee, to have input in the same way that we do for stormwater, in the same way that we have for business development, in the same way that obviously the Planning Commission is on itself. But I do feel like this is a really great opportunity to open that door to have more community involvement, and it would create a sense of ownership for where we're going with our parks and rec areas.
Okay.
Dustin, you oversee a department that is one of the more visible departments in anybody's purview, right? The people in our community see what you do and what you don't do, and what your people do and don't do, and mostly it's do, and we all know that and love that about you and your team. So hats off to you, because it is a jewel of TGK. It's a remarkable thing that we have, that we enjoy, and that our residents get to enjoy. And I recognize and appreciate the attention that you give to those spaces in our community, and the good job that your team does of making it a great place to live. That said, I would tend to agree with what I've heard from my fellow council members, that I guess if I were to define putting a group of residents together that might have some feedback, I know that there are hundreds of folks that would like to have a say or have a seat at that table to say, this is what we think the future of our Parks and Rec should look like. To give you some guidance on what you bring to budgets every year, to say, hey, this is what our residents want. It isn't just something that I put in your ear, or someone else put in your ear, or a pet project that someone has, but people that are really using those facilities are saying, hey, this is what we think this should look like. Beautification, revitalization, maybe growth. Almost a steering committee, if you will, to help give you some guidance on where we see the future of our Parks and Recs going. I think if I could define it that way, it would probably be like a steering committee. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. What's next on this, Charlie? What's the next
So,
step?
before we move to the next item, if I could just get clarification from the five of you, whether Greenway Green Space stuff is being added to the existing code under Parks and Rec or added to the code under Stormwater. And from there, Dustin and I can work together on any updates on the Parks and Rec side or potential updates and where that Greenway Green Space stuff goes.
So I would say that our green space, that doesn't really fall under Dustin, does it?
I would agree.
Right. I mean, that's, a dead tree going to fall on somebody's house has nothing to do with Parks and Recs.
I would agree.
And the green spaces that we have aren't really usable for parks or recreation.
Correct.
So I would say, based on that, I'd leave that out of this. That'd be my recommendation.
Agreed.
Chris, that was your idea on bringing it as part of Parks and Rec. Is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
The only thing that
You're talking about tapping into volunteer network, which I think is
That's
great.
what- yeah, that's what I'm-
Maybe not this one.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, you know, but just to be able to have a volunteer organization that would go out and would look at those areas, whether it be with the, you know, under the Park and Rec umbrella or whatever, we need folks to go out and try to help lighten the load of what our arborist and the staff has to do with the tree canopy that we have. And a lot of that falls in stormwater easement areas. So with that, you know.
Based on the involvement you got with that Service Saturday deal and the participation that you got, I would guess if we ask for volunteers for a project like that, you're taking down dead trees or cleaning out dead trees or cleaning up a drainage area.
Well, as long as we're not taking out trees, I think we could be okay, 'cause, you know, like underbrush or something that's low level and we're not dropping trees. You know, that would probably be good, but, you know, dropping big oak trees and stuff, I could see how that would be a problem.
You probably don't want volunteers doing that.
Yeah, no. But yeah, that, along the same lines, though, you know.
But I
hey,
can drag them and
tag
stack 'em.
and
More of
tag 'em.
eyeballs.
Yep, it's just extra 10 or 12 sets of eyeballs to put, you know.
Could I make a suggestion that we look at doing that with stormwater, but at the same time, look at the stormwater in general, revisiting the environmental thing, because a lot of the problems, and I'm sure Gus can attest to this with the, with the, you know, the lake and the fill and the silt, and then you got, you know, because the stormwater ordinance already covers a lot of that, and if the stormwater itself, they haven't met in a long time, and if they get to meeting and then they find out, well, we don't really have a lot to do right now on stormwater per se, but they still have the purview over the greenway and working potentially, you know, lake stuff, issues, working with, you know, our environmental compliance officer, stuff like that. It might just be able to revitalize that committee, I guess is my point.
Yeah, and I have not had an opportunity to have a lot of long discussions with members of Stormwater, but in the little bits that I've heard, I think that there are members of that committee that have ideas and thoughts of things that they want to initiate, and they're excited to get started. So it's not just totally dependent on the ordinance. I think that they have some creativity and some new things that they want to be able to address. So I think that there's bandwidth there for those people to not just have a checklist.
That's what I need.
All right.
We'll work to bring you something back, maybe by the December meeting, but it might be right after the first of the year.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the discussion, folks. Moving on. If everybody's good with that? Okay. So our next item of business is new business, is a discussion and consideration of allocating the remaining ARPA funds. The city did receive American Rescue Plan funds in 2021 and the second disbursement in 2022, totaling $5,643,061. At the direction of prior council, $4,154,000 $4,154,561. Sorry, I don't normally count that high. I had to get my shoes off. Was assigned to wastewater treatment plant upgrades, $1,308,600. I'll get this in a minute. $1,308,600 was assigned to Catawba Park for the water and sewer infrastructure. $78,100 was assigned to cover essential worker pay in public safety, and $58,000 was allocated as lost revenue for the beach and swim club during 2022. At the request of the Mayor Pro Tem Miller and Councilmember Hyslip, this item is to allow for discussion and consideration of the remaining $200,000 that was allocated as grants for local businesses who lost revenue due to COVID. Do I have do I have any further discussion on it?
This is just discussion, right?
Yeah, this is just discussion. So I'm gonna go ahead and just open up the floor and say, Charlie, the $200,000 been sitting in the account for a little while. Why were the funds, just for public knowledge and all that kind of stuff, so we can answer these questions that people have, why were the funds not used back during the pandemic, and why are we having to use them now?
So the breakdown that we presented to council back in 2001 did not show any of this allocation, this $200,000 being used until the second round of money. So Treasury Department, State Department, they split up everybody's allocation. So we got our first one in October 2021, and then we got the remaining 50% of it in 2022. During those discussions at that particular time, former Councilmember Overman and former Councilmember Hyslip, or not Hyslip, Machunas, sorry, we were having discussions about a potential business incubator. And trying to form a place where startups could get started, if you would. Maybe somebody's starting out in their house and they want to grow to that next step before they actually build a place, if you will. At that particular time, our guidance was based off of what the U.S. Treasury Department called the interim final rule. And that was probably one of the most complicated documents to understand, just on where you could actually spend the money. The idea behind that was, okay, businesses, and there was a lot of talk about restaurants because they actually got shut down by the governor's office, by Governor McMaster's office, about trying to help them, right? And doing it almost as a grant process, if you will. The idea that we had was to have EDC come up with some criteria that would come before council for approval, and then we would move forward with adding that. During that particular time, it was extremely difficult, much more so than it is now. I think EDC, especially since Ashley Rabin has taken on chair, has done a fantastic job, and focusing on the businesses that are here and their Business Connect meetings and having a quorum pretty much every month. There's been very few where they haven't had a quorum and not able to meet. Prior to that, you would get 1, 2, maybe 3 people. You didn't have a quorum, you couldn't meet. And it's just not something that we pushed, to be quite honest. It was hard to get them going. Maybe that falls back on me and I should have just done it. It just, for lack of a better term, it was not a priority with everything else that we were doing. With building Catawba Park and all that stuff. So regardless of that, there was also new information that came out, if you will. The final rule finally came out. And it almost answered a question that we had from the get-go. If you're spending out all this money around the state, and there's 272 cities in South Carolina, you think about the number of cities in this country, because every one of them got money. Who's tracking this? Who's tracking the reporting that we have to do on an annual basis and things of that nature? And I think with the final rule, they kind of cleared it up for us. Because then they came out, and this is not that long ago, that came out and said if you got $10 million or less, you can claim it all as lost revenue, stick it in your reserve, spend it how you want to. Your council can decide, you spend it how you want to. We would have one of those cities. So At first, we were told you got to put it in certain buckets, and we analyzed the buckets and analyzed the buckets, and there was only a few that really applied to TKK, and those were the ones that we recommended. Yeah, if the final rule had been if the interim rule had been as clear as the final rule, then council, look, you got $5.9 million, put it in reserves, and you could pay for half of Catawba Park with it. You could put it all towards treatment plants. You could do, there's a number of things that we could do. So that's where we are. Now, as I shared with council prior, the agreement to meet the obligation, we have been under the impression since September 2021 that when that council voted, that met the obligation. And speaking with our field representative last month, no, it's got to be under contract or under agreement. Oh, how do we do that before December 31st? Because council's already obligated. Prior council already voted on it. They came back to us and said, well, that agreement can be just as simple as an MOU between yourself as city manager and the finance director, directing him. As long as it's signed and dated and in the file before December 31st, you're good. Well, that's not what we were told originally, but thank you for the clarification. So at this point, if council still wants to try to move forward with supporting small businesses, I just need that direction tonight, and then I can do that MOU with Bob, directing him, for the record, Bob Barkin, our finance director, directing him that $200,000 is to go towards small businesses, and boom, that part's done. Subsequently, then we would bring back to council, one, I think we've got to clarify what is the small business, right? Who goes into that? Who of those small businesses would be eligible? Is it going to be based off of lost revenue? Which means that means they got to have been in existence in 2019 to show that they lost revenue in 2020, right? Because that's when the pandemic was. Even though we didn't get that funding until 2021 and 2022, that's the year. So are we going to do it on lost revenue? Or are we just going to say, okay, these are the businesses that were in existence in 2020, and we're going to cut them an equal check for each one? So we can bring some stuff back to council after the first of the year if this is the direction council still wants to go. It's totally up to y'all. We were of the impression that, all right, we've got until 2026 to get this money spent. And it hadn't been a priority, if you will. And if members of the public want to be upset with someone over that, they can be upset with me, because I didn't make it a priority. I thought I had a pretty good plan with the EDC come up with something, and with the turnover and the lack of quorums that they had during that particular time, it just kind of got lost in the shuffle, if you will. So it's a very long way to answer the question, I think, but happy to answer any others.
Okay. So I'm trying to catch myself a little bit in the comment of it wasn't a priority.
Okay.
This money was voted on in 2022 to help businesses that were starting to recover, our businesses, our local businesses that were starting to recover and were recovering from COVID-19. It's now the end of 2024, and the only reason this came up was because there was some big push on the fact that it's not properly allocated.
Mm-hmm.
I find it so frustrating that this was not a priority. It was $200,000 that was supposed to have gone to our businesses that would have needed it at the time. And now we have to figure out a way to retroactively see who may still be able to benefit. And if we allocate all of that $200,000 to businesses going forward, and we don't have a way to qualify those businesses, then what happens to that money? We lose it, right?
Unless you want to obligate it another way.
Unless we take it from our small businesses who should have received it 2 years ago, and we give it to somebody else. I find that, I'm sorry, and I'm really passionate about this, but I find that so unacceptable that we did not take the time to consider those small businesses at the time that they needed it, when there was $200,000 that could have been used by them.
We looked at, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I do. I understand what you're saying, and our local small businesses are important to us. They're important to me. In 2022, when we received the money, the businesses that were in existence in 2020 were still in existence, and they were still doing very well.
But very well by what determination? Because I'm a small business, and I know what it took for other small businesses to make through that, to make payroll, to figure out a way to make business happen. And there was $200,000 that could have helped keep a job for any one of those small businesses. How was it determined that everyone was doing well and they didn't need to have that money allocated to them in any type of priority?
We were just looking at businesses that were in operation, that are still in operation, business license, H-tax. That's what we're looking at.
There was no outreach.
No, there's not been any outreach to the businesses.
I find that so unacceptable.
Okay.
And I'm sorry.
Charlie, when were we made aware that we had the 200,000 and what we could do with it? What was the date on that?
So the conversations first
2021,
started in
wasn't
2021. We got our first allocation of funds in October of 2021. The second allocation in October of 2022.
And the final rule came when?
I don't have that date. I'd have to look it up.
Was it in 2023? Was it this
year? It may have been this year. Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was relatively recent.
Really confusing because the interim rule was pages and pages and pages, and I think they tried to simplify things.
So we were waiting on the final rule in order to figure out where this money could go?
No, sir. No, sir. In 2021, based on the interim final rule.
I'm just talking about the 200,000.
No, this was an acceptable spend under the interim final rule.
Okay.
The final rule basically took, for lack of a better term, all restrictions that the interim rule put on. The final rule basically lifted those restrictions. So if we had that guidance in 2021, I think that council at that time could have had a lot of discussions on how do we want to what's the best spend on this money.
What
But at the
kind of
time,
regulations are we talking about? Like, is there like a specific example you could give me on the regulation?
so you could expand broadband. You could expand and make improvements to your water and sewer. You could do essential pay for essential workers, which they didn't get into a whole lot of detail on what essential workers were. I know my recollection is they listed police and fire. They also listed teachers. They also listed cashiers. Those type things. So I mean, and then they had a list of, and I'm sorry I can't get on the.
Did they tell you how you could allocate it with the essential workers? Did they give us any guidelines or anything like that?
Essential pay for essential workers is how they listed
That's
it.
all you got?
Yes, sir.
That's fairly difficult.
It was pretty limiting where the money could go initially when it came out. And I remember sitting through several of those meetings when prior council was discussing how to divvy that money up. And I know that it was pretty limiting regulation on how the money could be spent. And then all of a sudden that regulation got lifted based on the amount we received. But that was after council had already voted where the money was going. It was already assigned. We just didn't assign it. We didn't execute it.
Okay.
So moving forward, next steps, I'd still like to go ahead and make sure that the local businesses receive that 200,000 since they didn't get it before. Now, how we allocate that 200,000 in regards to if they had specific lost revenue, years in business, or what have we. Is that something that the city would go off and do, or is that something that we can allocate the EDC to go ahead and review the guidelines in order to provide some bumpers for council?
Either, however council wants to go with it. Whichever
Anybody?
direction.
I don't
Mayor,
mind
if I
letting the
can-
EDC
Probably
go off
not a
and handle that.
discussion for tonight, but.
Yeah, no. But I mean, to provide some direction in regards to 200,000 to try and figure it out from now. I understand, like, it didn't happen, I get it, but what can we do now moving forward?
So just for, we need to go ahead and vote to, if we voted tonight to allocate that money to small business.
It's already been done.
That's already done.
But
Yeah,
what
that
I'm,
was already voted.
I'm getting there.
I'm sorry, I'll shut
getting
up.
there. With that, I think we need to establish some parameters via maybe a workshop or something like that, to where we establish the businesses that needed it then, need it now. You know, because right now, we've got kind of an envelope of what kind of parameters we would have, but I think we need to nail those down so that we can do all of our small businesses the justice they need to be, that they need to have done to allocate these funds.
So originally, the allocation was to TK businesses that were storefronts. They were brick and mortar, correct?
That was the discussion, but the way it was actually listed was grants for small businesses.
Okay.
And that was it.
Because in the meeting, it was, when the vote happened, it was specifically said for brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just a discussion. It wasn't how it was actually voted.
No, the motion that was made and approved was motion to approve, I'm sorry, don't quote me on this, but it was basically to approve what was presented. And that was the spreadsheet that I've shared with council that just shows it as grants for local small businesses.
Okay. What was when you presented that, what was the intention in defining a small business?
It hadn't been yet.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
I don't
so
remember
it was 200,000 to small businesses. This did not specifically apply to brick and mortar.
The conversations leading up to that was about helping the restaurants, because they were taking it on the chin pretty good in 2020 for a period of time where they had to close, if you will. There was conversations about not doing your, what do you call it, home occupation type businesses. Hey, I've got an office, I work out of my house kind of thing. It was to stimulate or help the businesses that, stimulate those businesses that have been impacted by COVID-19.
But that wasn't also noted in the
Correct.
approval, right?
Correct.
So
Yep.
we're still talking about just small businesses, what we had to deal with.
Any business could qualify.
Any small business would qualify.
And one of the guidances that, I'm sorry, I was able to get back into the server. From MASC, it specifically lists small businesses, but doesn't give a definition of it. It also lists hospitality sectors, tourism, travel, and hospitality sectors. We were specifically told at that time we couldn't spend it to build a new tourism like Catawba Park, even though they've come back and now, oh, you could have. But so, I mean, realistically, you know, for whether it's tonight or at your December meeting, as long as it's before December 31st, I just need clear direction from this council that, yes, it's going to go to small businesses, and then we can work to define what that small business is.
I'm trying to get to
Okay.
a place where we can maybe talk about defining what that would look like.
Sure.
The other thing I think you mentioned was that if a small business had received any type of other funding or grants, that they would then be disqualified from additional funds. Is that correct?
That was the guidance that I got from our field rep from MASC, that if they got the the PPP loans and the SBA loans and things like that.
Yeah, because individual businesses, a lot of them did make the applications, so you don't want them to get a double dip, because it's
Okay.
the same.
So then
Same pot of
from
money.
that's part of the criteria. Then you're a small business. No definition of what that is, because that was never originally put forward. You haven't received any type of PPP or SBA federal help. you had to have been in good standing at the beginning of 2020 and have to be in good standing today. Is that fair?
These were just recommendations in the conversation I was having with our field rep. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Things
And-
that he recommended that if
But that helps us to put criteria forward because we don't have a lot of time. And then also, I think you said.
That's not
Yeah, I
really
think
true.
you're
Well,
getting ahead of
no,
yourself.
we don't have a lot of time because if we say that we're putting the entire 200,000 into this small business reimbursement or grant, and we only have 6 qualifying businesses, are we going to split the 200,000 between 6 qualifying businesses, or are we going to say up front, we know that there could be, I think you said 29 qualifying
I
businesses.
think so, yes, ma'am.
And then they would each receive about $6,800 if you split it across the 68 and change.
Correct.
So I
If you
think that that's
divided
part
it
of their
evenly.
criteria,
Right.
because if we don't have enough businesses and we only have 50, just say 50,000 of the 200,000 that gets allocated, and we put all that 200, we will lose it, which makes absolutely no sense either. So yeah, there is a big time crunch to get this right up front.
So what I would say, just is for this meeting tonight, is I would say, would everybody agree, we need to get together and do a workshop to discuss the parameters, discuss the logistics and everything of
think we do.
allocating these funds?
Hang on, can I
So-
ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So maybe I'm missing something. I just wanted to define this. So if I understand correctly, we have to make a decision on whether we're spending that money on local businesses or if we're spending it on something else. We just have to make a decision where the money's going.
Correct. So
Before
that I
the end
can
of
do an
December. Let me finish.
MOU, MOA with.
Before the end of December of this year.
Correct.
Then we have until the end of December of '26 to define the parameters of how that money's spent.
And spend it.
Within the
You have to-
guidelines of what we decide
You have to have it
tonight.
spent by December 31 of 2026.
Okay, so if we say we want it to go to small businesses, we meet that guideline for the end of this year. And then we still have, I don't want to take 2 years to do it,
No.
but maybe over the course of the next few months, we take a deep breath and say, how do we want to create the criteria, how that money gets spent?
Yeah,
But
I think
if you
what
don't
Carmen's
have enough-
saying though
what
is.
you won't, what
yeah.
if you don't have, because there are a lot of those businesses that did have PPP, and they did have the SBA, and they did, and there's those qualifiers that we can't work around, which is going to narrow the number of businesses that can participate. I don't want to have to give back any of this money.
Why would we? Why
So-
wouldn't we just
Well,
split it
You're gonna give
equally among
50
the
grand each
qualifying
to 4
businesses?
businesses. So what Carmen's saying, let me try to simplify it. So we say it's all going to small business, and then we wait, and next year, beginning of the year, we start looking at the parameters, and it turns out, oh, wait a minute, of the 29 businesses in TKK, 25 of them had already received some type of COVID relief. Now we only have 4 businesses we can give it to.
And we're going to split
And we gotta give them the whole 200 grand.
Among
into
4 people?
businesses.
Yeah, because we can't change it at that point. What if we do that over the next month? If staff gets together and says, okay, there were 29 businesses, and we ask them, who applied for what?
If we can narrow down the 29 businesses to qualifying businesses and
Yep.
say, this is the money that is going to that bucket, and then the rest of it is going to go into something else. Can we do that by the end of the year?
Yeah.
We can absolutely try. I mean, we've got the contact information through our business licenses to contact the entity, the person or what have you that's paying the business license. We would need documentation from them.
Well, and that's on them, right? Because
Right.
if, say, the deadline is December 25th, not Christmas, but, okay, so December 23rd.
Right.
If the deadline is December 23rd and we have to make we have to turn this in by the 31st, then we know that we only need to leave this much money for this business side. And we don't take the risk of losing money that we should never have been at a risk to lose
So.
because it's not allocated correctly.
I don't think you're going to have a problem finding
So-
a home for $200,000.
Here's-
Here's why, if I
Here's
may.
perhaps an idea, with the small business being the focus, any remaining funds being allocated towards the treatment plants. So as we work through the criteria, right, and if council decides, okay, we want to set a not to exceed, let's say, $10,000, per business or just to use a number, and there's not enough qualifying businesses based on whatever qualifications that council determines, any of those other funds then automatically go, and that could, basically, I could write the MOU, which is basically just directions to Bob, to check that box. Then you don't run the risk of,
That has to be done before December 31st, though.
it doesn't have to be spent.
No, but you
No.
can't reallocate it. So if we say 200 grand for small business, and then in January, February,
And
we
any
start
funds
looking,
not spent on small business, not allocated.
you can't reallocate it at that point.
No, but
That's
can't
the
we
problem.
say by the end
We
of
could say it in
December
the-
that if it can't be spent based on the criteria, that balance would go to?
That's what I'm saying.
Would go
Right,
to
go to
stormwater,
TCUT.
or
Yeah.
would go to something else.
I like it.
Can't we
If that would,
allocate
if that
it
would
two
meet
different
the
ways?
language, I don't know if it would, but.
What do you think, Chaplain?
Oh, I think I'm not going to call that one on the cuff.
Smart.
Yeah, I think we need to talk with our field rep more
Okay,
and get some guidance.
fair enough. Well,
And-
here's why I don't think you'll have a problem giving the $200,000 where it should have gone to start with. And I'll share a personal experience with you. And I'm probably going to get some hate for this, and I don't really care. But I'm just going to be honest and share an honest story. My wife's run a business in this community for 17 years. It's a valuable business that brings value to everybody that ever has reached out to her. You guys have used her business.
Amen.
2020, when the world changed and everybody came home and nobody needed somebody to come to their house and walk their dog anymore because they were working from home, her business shut down. We lost $70,000 in income that year. $70,000 in income. That was tough. That was really hard. There are other businesses out there like that that lost significant income because of the impact of COVID. I'm not asking for $70,000. I'm not asking for a dime. I'm not. I'm going to want that to be public. You give it to me, I'll take it. But I'm not asking for it. But I can tell you that was
not getting any.
that was a very, very difficult challenge for our family at that time. I think you're going to find a lot of businesses that went through that, and that you're not going to have a hard time giving that money to who really lost it.
Do you,
Well,
well,
in the
based
interest
on
of
that,
that
do you
same
want to open it
disclosure-
up to more than just brick and mortar?
Well, I think that was the point, is that we are talking about more than brick and mortar, because you said it was never defined that way. Just for the same type of disclosure in how passionate I am about this, it is for stories like that, and it's not about my business. I would disqualify. I'm not benefiting from or participating in any of this.
Exactly.
But I am incredibly passionate about the fact that there are families that were impacted in businesses, those small businesses, true small businesses that were heavily impacted, that are in some cases still struggling to put back what they had to take from their savings in order to make it work. Those businesses deserve the apology that this was not taken care of in a more timely, efficient, and caring way, and that we have a responsibility to make sure that they get to have an opportunity to access these funds. Now, it's a shortened opportunity because, as I'm saying all that, I do not want to take a risk of not being able for the city to benefit from funds that came to it as well. So whatever we need to look at to open this up for those small businesses to be able to show that they want and need, and then to use any remaining funds to move to whatever we determine to be the right place by the end of the year. I think those two things have to happen so that we don't end up losing and this becomes kind of a bigger mess.
So we'll have further conversations with the field rep about the dual allocation, if you will. And then we will have this as an agenda item for you at your December meeting. I'll also put my heads together with some of my staff as far as what those criteria potentially look like. Also using mass guidance for potentially other cities that may have done some of this. And we'll bring you something back in time for your December agenda for y'all to be able to move forward and take action on. And at that point, we should be able to move pretty swiftly. If we can get everything put together that y'all would need, and I'm putting that on me and my team, then we should have you something in place at your December meeting where you can you could vote and approve, and we can move forward and pretty swiftly.
And I had one last thing, overall bigger picture, ARPA funds, in going forward. Charlie, would it be possible that the remaining ARPA funds and any other grants we have that are outside the general budget, that they're included some way in that spreadsheet? Because, I didn't even know about this 200 grand, and it caught Carmen and I off guard when we were meeting last month about I mean, we knew overall ARPA we had $5 million, but we didn't understand. I mean, I've been on council for almost 3 years. I didn't know we had this $200,000 for small business until 3 weeks ago. And if I had, I'm sure some of us would have been, okay, let's get this to the businesses. And because they're every other on the budget, in the budget reconcile, we get quarterly and monthly, and we have every other breakdown on there. If we have other money like this,
Yes, sir.
and including this money,
100%.
even if it's on a separate tab, and
Yep.
it'll help avoid future instances like this where, stuff happens, I get it, and everyone's busy, and, but, the more eyes on it, it just avoids any
absolutely.
issues.
Yeah, and obviously, there's been a lot of questions that have stemmed from having this 200,000 come up with the ARPA funds and with expenses that have been written towards those accounts. So yes, accounting and transparency would be really welcome, so that there is none of this head spinning that's happening.
Sure, that's not a problem. I mean, Bob has those, honestly, because they're in separate funds, if you will, from our general fund, our TCUD fund, stormwater fund, so on and so forth. So just consolidating those into the spreadsheets that we're already sending you, it's not a problem. We can get that done. I'm glad to.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, moving on. We have some new business, a discussion and consideration of allocating reserve funds for the repair of the soccer facility at Catawba Park. As everyone is aware, Catawba Park endured significant damage from Tropical Storm Helene. While our staff has done an amazing job getting the park reopened, the soccer fields remain in disrepair. The other week, insurance adjusters from the city's property and liability insurance did the review and of the damage. At this time, they cannot give us a time frame on when they will disperse any payments. This item is to allow council to consider allocating up to $1.8 million to cover the cost of the necessary repairs until such time that we receive payment from insurance. The work has been bid through a national co-op called Sourcewell, and we are able to use the original installer, Sprint Turf. Time is of the essence on the repair, as it will be 8 to 12 weeks from the date of order for the fields to be usable. Do I have a discussion on this?
There you go.
So Mayor, if I can maybe kick things off. Smurf has told us this is covered. They are very, very behind with their adjusters, basically more claims than what they have adjusters for. I believe we were told there were 350 claims related to Tropical Storm Helene. That's a lot of claims. With that, they've got all the information from us. They've, as the mayor stated, they've been on site. Dora opened the claim almost immediately after the storm. I heard Dustin have done a great job making sure that they've got all that information. FEMA is not an option except for, under the public assistance, except for uninsured claims. Okay, so we are insured, but any portion of this that is not covered or not paid out by Smurf, we would apply for FEMA. Chief Hasty's done an amazing job for us opening that portal. We've already got claims in for recouping staff time. I believe it was around $12,000 on staff time spent in relation to that storm during and post with cleanup. And now we're working through this. So it's not a matter of if we're going to get an insurance payment. It's a matter of when. And when I requested that we put this on the agenda, They had just told us, we can't give you a time frame. We just don't know. I want to talk briefly about the 1.8. All right, so that would be a not to exceed number, and it would come in waves, if I may. So at the time of order, we would be invoiced for 20%. Right. Once the turf is on site, which is about 4 to 5 weeks, then it would be 30%. I think maybe in a prior communication I said 40%. I got clarification from Dustin on that today. It is 30%. Then you've got the remaining 50% that doesn't come in until after it's completed. Based on their calendar, you're talking probably late January, early February. There is a chance that we could get the insurance reimbursement after the 20%, before we ever have to pay the 30%. So it wouldn't be taking 1.8 million out of reserves, and we want to leave as much of that in that investment pool with reserves for as long as we can. But we are definitely running up against the clock on getting these fields done, not only for some tournaments, regional tournaments that are already scheduled for out there in mid-January and mid-February, but also our own sports seasons coming up in the spring, because December 1st we start spring registration, and they're usually out practicing late February. So time is a little bit of the essence on this, which is why we're making this request at this time. Dustin is happy to answer any questions that you may have about Sourcewell. But that's that. Just wanted to kick things off with that, and we'll be happy to answer whatever questions council may have.
So I had a question. Are there any rules written anywhere to where the kids have to play on turf for soccer?
No, sir.
Okay.
Are you saying go back with grass?
I mean, if this area is prone to flood. Now, granted, we had a 100-year, 1,000-year storm, whatever it is. It's prone to flood. We go and we spend $1.8 million. We got another hurricane blows through, and away that stuff goes. Then we're going to be spending another $1.8 million. I mean, the grass on the green at Catawba Park was pretty resilient on it. And, I mean, when I walked on it and looked at it, it looked great. I understand that there's a turnover as far as we have to play as many teams as we can play, and turf holds up a lot better than grass. But I have to ask the question, if we're in a flood-prone area, is it prudent for us moving forward to spend $1.8 million to re-turf an area that's already been flooded?
I don't know what it's going to cost you to put turf down, or put grass down, sod down, to be quite honest. You also have a growing season problem. The Bermuda grass is not active at this point in time, and wouldn't be activated realistically until late spring. Yeah. So I'm putting grass down over the winter months. I mean, yeah, we could overseed with ryegrass and things like that to try to hold it down, but we'd also have, you've got grading and things like that would have to be done to that field, versus putting the rock back that's already out there. I mean, it's already graded and designed and ready for the turf. Mm-hmm. You're also going to probably significantly increase your maintenance costs. We're going to need more bodies to maintain it. We're going to need more, cutting the grass, pre-emergence, all those good things, plus the wear and tear. I mean, that we saw for over a decade at Turner and the other facilities, mm-hmm. Just with all the use on them. I don't know whether this is a factor in your discussion or decision making or not. I don't know how independents would feel about it. I mean, with the sum of money that they're paying to the city on an annual basis per their agreement, they can give a 60-day notice and then they're done. So if they don't feel like the facility that we're providing to them is going to meet their needs, they could cancel that contract on us. So you possibly, and I don't know this, you possibly could save some money in not going back with artificial turf, but you're also going to have some increased expenses, and you're going to have potentially have a loss of revenue.
That's just asking questions.
Yes, sir.
A couple questions, if I may. Tell me, Got a couple questions. What would be the warranty on replacing this?
Dustin, you want to? Yep.
I guess there's no warranty if we get flooded again, but that's a different discussion altogether. So.
Sorry, I have my cup. They're getting beat tonight, but.
Yeah.
Are you asking when it gets reinstalled with the warranty?
Yes.
It's an 8-year warranty.
8-year warranty, okay.
Yeah, so anytime they do the install, obviously it doesn't cover things like this, but any type of defects in workmanship and things like that, it is 8 years. And when they do get redone, it will restart the 8-year warranty over again.
Okay.
That they currently have.
Thank you for that. And the decision to move with Sprint Turf sounds like it was because that's who the original installer was?
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah, so to kind of give everyone kind of an idea, when this originally happened, one of the first things we thought about is, wow, the time is of the essence. We have to get moving, like Charlie mentioned about. We do have some tournaments in January. We're hosting the Quad Ball tournament in February. That's going to kick off almost our tourism side of things. When I looked into it and did some research, we saw that there's a company called Sourcewell, which is a co-op, a purchasing co-op. So what they do is they look at all these different types of goods and services that could possibly have, whether it's athletic surfacing like turf or weights or treadmills, things of all that sort. And they send out an RFP to any company that could do that. And as I look through it, essentially they have bid out all the pricing, which y'all have gotten in your packets as to what that would cost. So essentially once I saw that Sprint Turf was on there, they have already theoretically bid out what their goods and services would be. And because they are the original installer, they already have all the specs that have already been done. They already have all the layouts that have already been done previously. They essentially just had to update it and say, hey, here's your updated quote. And that's why we decided, as opposed to going through multiple different companies, time is of the essence. We're going to move forward with the company that originally installed it.
I'm guessing that saves us on engineering, surveying.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Thing that would normally be done with another bid process.
Correct.
Okay. Are we violating any state statute or
No,
any
sir.
ordinance by not putting this out for bid?
So what we checked is in our actual ordinance, there is a section, it's 7.H.A.18, I had to look at that, as part of the exceptions, the following goods and services are exempt from the standard purchasing process. And number 18, GSA, NIPA, or Sourcewell contracted items or services. So it does fit in our actual purchasing ordinance. So we're not violating purchasing ordinances.
And as the person that wrote that part, I took Rock Hill's purchasing ordinance, took out the sections about trains and train tracks. That's what your ordinance is.
Okay.
So that the Sourcewell and those exemptions, that came from Rock Hill's list.
To ask some questions on Sourcewell and the bidding and all that, the agenda says that there was I can't see it right off the top, but basically it said that the work has been bid, I found it. The work has been bid through a national co-op called Sourcewell, and we're able to use the original installer Sprint Turf. But really the work, to me, that implies this work, this particular project, has not been bid out.
By Sourcewell it was, to install athletic turf.
This particular project, though, this TKK project has not gone out for bid. It was bid out in
Oh, you mean the
2022 by Sourcewell, correct?
Correct.
It was sent out as a national bid request of applying turf to fields. And then Spring Turfs happened to be one of the bidders that turned in a bid in 2022 for basically a template bid. But no one has actually sent out a bid that's specific to this particular project. So we have no comparison and no process to know that we're actually getting the best possible option. And if I'm understanding correctly from Spring Turf, the first time that they were granted this job, they didn't have to bid either because they were part of the big contract that was granted to Southern Builders. So this is the second time that we're going through this process with Spring Turf, where we're not getting a competitive bid for this particular turf project. Is that fair?
Well, the first time they went underneath a general contractor. With a general contractor, you have subcontractors.
Right.
Those subcontractors then give their bids to the general contractor, who then submits that. And if the general contractor is the lowest bid, then they get the job, if they're qualified.
Right, no, I get
So
that.
the subcontractors don't have to give a bid to the city per se. They just give it to the general contractor. The only reason I'm saying that is because that's what we do all the time.
Yeah. No, and I
So-
get that. I'm saying that Spring Turf has this particular job or project of the turf for our park has not ever been through a standard bid process where we're getting competitive information. The general contractor might have, but we just accepted it as part of the original contract. And now we're going through and asking to spend almost $2 million on our fields, again, with no competitive bids, just picking out someone that because they went through Sourcewell. And I guess I'm also confused as to when does the city decide to bypass the standard bid process because there's a list of 18 categories where they could?
So go ahead, Jeff.
But that's under your procurement code, and under state law, municipalities can adopt their own procurement code as long as they have rules and regulations to basically have a competitive process to keep your local money and make sure that there aren't backdoor deals. With Sourcewell, there actually is a bidding process. It's just already been done. And I believe they're all governmental entities. So there is already an RFQ, and then they take that square footage price. And they were the lowest and most responsive bidder to get that award. And they agreed, when they agree with Sourcewell, they agreed to lock in that price for the bidding governmental entity, and basically other governmental entities can tag along. A similar example is the state will have it for vehicles at times. There'll be the state, and then that's another one of your exemptions where you can tag along because there's already been a public bid process. And the thought process is if they're going out globally with more entities, instead of just for TIGA, you're probably going to get a better wholesale rate. So you usually do better through Sourcewell if you can do it and find the criteria, because they're bidding and wanting to get an award not just for TIGA, but dozens of municipalities.
Yeah, but in this case,
But
though,
you're right.
was
There wasn't a specific RFP for this project, but they did it they bid on a square footage price, and that's what we're taking and applying. But you're right. We didn't do an RFQ with this and send it out to bid. We used another process.
And did any, and I understand that Spring Turf was the company that has already done this once, so I do get, the reason to have a higher consideration for them. But there are also, I think, 20 some odd other companies that turned in a bid through Sourcewell for that same project. So were any of those companies looked at and to see what their numbers were?
So we didn't look at the other ones in terms of comparing and contrasting those numbers, because when we noticed that Sprint Turf was part of it, they have already completed 75% of the actual work in terms of the specifications and in terms of knowing the layouts, and they could take our previous order and essentially duplicate it. So knowing that, and again, time is of the essence, we wanted to make sure that we were moving forward with a company that we knew did good work, which they completed, and it was good at before the accident. And then as it was mentioned, we looked at it as this is a nationally bid price. And I mean, we could look at all of them, but now you're going through, like I said, those processes of getting people to come out and look at it and redesign and, use and upsell potentially different turfs and things of that sort. So in the best interest of going with the procurement, we wanted to make sure that we wanted to present something to y'all that we can move on and not impact our recreation sports, our renters, things of that sort. So
with the question on the impact, what is the projected revenue loss for those fields?
So in the terms of in the winter time, I mean, I can tell you that off the bat, you're looking at a rental fee of $2,500 for our quad ball. However, I think the impact goes much further than just the rental fee. You're looking at an organization that is a national organization that has chosen TKK to host one of their national qualifiers. So you're looking at people that are coming into the area and hopefully eating at our restaurants and things of that sort. It also, and when you look at obviously the Main Street presentation that was provided earlier, I mean, that's your tourism right there and your revenue generation. If we have a group that wants to come in year after year and host these big tournaments and have people eat, stay, play in our area, I mean, that's your entire tourism and revenue that's coming in. So while we're only potentially losing $2,500 in rental fees in that area, it's the other impact, like I was mentioning, or that Charlie mentioned as well, with potentially Charlotte Independence. If they don't have what is part of their contract, they may potentially say that it's not worth it to them since they don't have the field space.
So do we not have an analysis of what all of that possible loss of revenue could look like? Because what you're asking us to do is $1.8 million of reserves. What percentage of our total reserves is $1.8 million?
20%.
I'm having
20%.
an issue getting into our server right now because I do have this information. I apologize, but
It's about 20%.
my computer's not letting me in. So you're at, hold on one second, let me do some math real quick.
Well, Charlie's looking at Dustin. I just had one question about the source well, because it sounded like two competing thoughts there in that Chaplain, and you said it's based on square footage. They've already done the bid basically in advance and said this is what we charge per square foot, and then you go out and say we'll take you because you're $10 per square foot, and that's the overall cost. But then you said that we would save money by going with Sourcewell, by going with Spin Turf because they've already done the job. But if it's a price per square foot, it's a price per square foot, right? I mean, it shouldn't be any different.
That was more in
Define the savings on that with Spin Turf.
So that was more in terms of the types of the layout. If other companies have to come in and get their own surveys, or they have to bring in other grading and things of that sort, Sprint Turf has already put all of that into their bid, as from my understanding. So in terms of it's more looked upon in terms of not the ease, but more of the speed that they can move on this because they already have everything drawn up, shopped up, spec'd out, everything like that. If you're going with another company, I mean, depending on how long they would be able to do that is more of what I was hitting on in terms of
So it's more time than money.
More time, yeah.
Because another company, if they said they would do it for $9 a square foot,
It may take 4 months to get
it may
us
take
the
4
shop
months, but we
drawings
might
in.
save $200,000.
Potentially, but then you're also, again, impacting your entire recreation
Yeah.
program. You're impacting everything that I mentioned already.
Right.
So
I just want to make
like-
sure I understand the Sourcewell side of it completely. Okay.
So with Sprint Turf, if the bid was recommended because of their square footage pricing, one request that I would make of you and your team would be that since the 1.8 is a not-to-exceed price.
Correct.
That we exercise our ability to make sure that not only is that a not-to-exceed price, but that the square footage price that they bid on that was competitive, that all of the other work that they've already done and the knowledge that they have of that field that makes that project more easier to apply for Sprint Turf, that they would pass some of that advantage on to us.
Well, don't we have the red lines?
They already gave us a bid.
Yeah, we already have all the shop photos, everything
You
like
got
that.
the shop drawings, you got the
Shop
red
specs,
lines, you
we
got
have
all that good
everything.
So
stuff.
it's a not-to-exceed number.
So, I mean, if a company did want that, they could get it. And we've got red line drawings, we've got shop drawings,
So-
we've got.
So we have them, but we could pass along Sprint Turf Strongs to another company if that's what you're.
Well, we bought them.
I'm not sure about that in terms of.
Yes, sometimes those are trade secrets. It depends. I don't know how that, your stepped plans from engineers and architects, those can be trade secrets, but I don't know how that was written.
We pay for those as a city. I deal with this all the time. When we do our red line drawings, we provide those to the engineers. The engineers provide those back to the city. They're stored in a file. So the city pays for that already. It's not a secret vault, it's not a treasure chest, it's not anything like that. It's actual files that the city's already purchased. They're our fields, they're our plans. If we need to provide those to a general contractor, the state does that all the time.
So it's not someone else's intellectual
It's not
property,
somebody
it belongs
else's
to the
intellectual
city.
property, it's ours, we already paid for it. So my thing is with Sprint Turf, so this is like a blanket contract with Sourcewell? It's a nationwide blanket contract with Sourcewell? So we operate that on the same way we operate all the time as well. We have blanket contracts that we provide to the state. The state takes that blanket contract. You know, we're going to put a pole in for $100. We put the pole in across the state for $100. Doesn't matter what city it is, doesn't matter where it is. That's where it goes with those blanket contracts. So that's essentially what we're doing with Sourcewell is a blanket contract. They've said this is X number, everything's included. Your engineering, your grading, your materials, everything's included in this 1 square foot of grass that we're going to install. So in that, they were the lowest bid for Sourcewell?
Yep, as far as I know.
Well, I thought we didn't look at
We
any other
didn't
ones.
look at
No,
the
I'm
other
saying
bids.
in terms of the.
Sourcewell, they were the lowest
bidding,
bid.
yeah, they were in the bids in terms of on the list.
We have no idea whether they were the lowest.
Yeah, we
bid
don't know
versus-
that because the GC did it. We didn't do it.
In terms of the lowest bid.
Originally.
Sourcewell. So
Sourcewell
on-
was the lowest,
So on
was the lowest?
Sourcewell, it's written up differently. So like y'all have seen in terms of the unit pricing for everything like that, each company has, whether it's a 10% discount or 20% discount or personalized pricing like that. In terms of those ones, we can go through each and every single one of them and look at it. But again, when you get into that, we can potentially find one that's $50,000 less expensive. But again, they would have to continue to do the drawings, and they would have to come out, and they have to inspect the fields, and they'd have to do all of that stuff. So again, I understand it's a lot of money, but I really want y'all to understand the time is of the essence in this situation, because Sprint Turf itself makes their own turf. Not all turf installers do that. So if you have one that's potentially made overseas or across the country or things of that sort, and they can't get it to it, you're looking at potentially 4 to 8 weeks of turf time.
So how much money do we lose if Charlotte Independence says, okay, you guys can't furnish the fields, we're out? How much money do we lose?
Don't quote me on it, but we're about $250,000 this past year.
250. All right, so what do we got left on their contract?
I'd have to look at that, but it's
Why don't we have those numbers? I mean, just give me, what kind of money we're going to lose? How many years we're left on the I mean, we got 2 years, we got 3 years,
I don't have the
we got
contract
5
in
years?
front of me, and I don't want to speak incorrectly, but I believe it's 2 years. I didn't print that one off.
Guys, you're asking us to spend $1.8 million, and you don't have the
20% of our
information
budget.
for us to make a decision.
Or 20% of our reserves.
And if time's of the essence, we need to have all our
I'm bringing
all
up
our
the
eggs
information
in
right
our-
now.
All right.
I got it right here. Give me 1 second. So contract was executed in July of 2022. And this is, let's see, it expires in 2027.
Okay.
So you're in year 2.
What,
So we're talking about $750,000 if they walked away.
So according to our contract, can they walk away because the fields are damaged?
They can give a 60-day notice and walk away just
For
like
any
we
For
can
any
for no
reason,
reason.
right?
Any reason or no reason at all.
Okay.
and then you have to,
Then they
you
gotta
have to
find new
weigh
fields.
in where they're going. And then
Right.
I guess, and that brings to my next question. If we didn't have the money to get in front of an insurance claim, what would we do? How would we fix this problem? How would we make it work so
So
that
there's-
we have maybe a narrower version of our spring season? We might miss, but, I mean, it's true what they just said. You're asking us to allocate all this money, and we don't know what the option is if we don't. We don't know what the revenue loss would be for real. I mean, you can take what you said as far as impact on, businesses around there. I mean, you can figure out what did those it takes legwork to come up here and ask for almost $2 million, and I just don't see the legwork. I'm sorry, and you know how much I respect you, Dustin. I have to be able to look at the people that pay their taxes for us to have the ability to do this. And I just don't see how we can do that, how we can say off the bat, yeah, let's go ahead and do $1.8 million in front of an insurance claim, which you said is going to be paid, but we don't know how much. I mean, we don't know if it's
Correct.
100% covered.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So if they come back and say, we're going to cover 70% of this, then we can go back and say, well, now we got to make a decision of where that 30% is going to come from. But what if they come back and they say, we're going to cover 10%?
What if they say none because we don't have flood insurance?
And then we have to make the tough decisions, right? And then we have to look at making this decision. But right now, if we don't know what the revenue loss is, if we don't know that we've looked at what would we do if we didn't have 1.8 million to spend, if we haven't looked at other options, then we haven't done our homework.
So your revenue loss from Charlotte Independence for 2025 is 252,000 for a year, and then and that's until 2025, and then in 26 and 27, it's $273,000 each of those years, so it goes up a little bit. Your other lost revenues are going to come, and I don't know how we would even begin to quantify this. You're talking about options. Right now, we wouldn't be able to do anything with those fields. Right?
Not
if
on those
we don't spend any
fields.
money. So at that point, we now have to start limiting registration. All right. So let's play this out. Charlotte Independence is left. Okay, so we've lost that revenue. So now we have taken back on the programming of our youth soccer programs. All right. So we're doing that. So we've got those expenses there, which our programming pretty much breaks even, if you will, right? But then we now have to rent facilities from the school district, like we used to have to do every year prior to Catawba Park. We have to start limiting our numbers in our soccer and probably our flag football programs because of lack of space. We've allowed the programs to grow to the point that they've grown from a participation standpoint because we had the space. We had enough room to program all of these things. So at this point, we're now going to have to cut that number down. By how much? I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, without knowing what school fields we could get access to, right? Without knowing those things, which we don't know, and I don't know how we would know. We can sit here and assume that, yes, the school district will let us use Gold Hill Middle School because they have in the past, and we can continue using TKK Elementary School. But also come spring, you've got the school's soccer programs that are using that. So they always get first priority before we do. So are those school facilities going to be enough to where we don't have to cut the number of kids down? I couldn't tell you how many kids we would have to deny access to the programs. It may be 10%, it may be 20% out of that soccer flag football program. Could be higher. I really don't know. We would have to work out the schedules and know what facilities we've got. And I'll be honest, I did not imagine that this was going to be, I mean, I realize the gravity of the amount of money, but not fixing something that we're still paying bonds on was not part of my thought process that we wouldn't fix the soccer fields. In conversations I've had with some of y'all, it was, well, I mean, regardless of where we get the insurance, we got to fix the fields, got said. Personally, I don't disagree. I would have to reach out to our bond attorney, Jeremy Cook, to see. I don't think there's anything from a bond covenant standpoint. You've also, where these soccer fields are, they are under a lease agreement with Clear Springs, right? They give us, based on this type of situation, 270 days in which to repair the facilities, or they could cancel the lease and kick us off. 270 days is a long time, a lot longer than what we're talking about right now. But I've been looking at it, Dust has been looking at it with the mindset of, hey, if we lose the tournaments in January, it's not the end of the world, okay? If we lose the quad ball thing in February, it's not a great look, but it's not the end of the world. But we start looking at what our youth sports look like, and not just soccer that Independence runs, but also our flag football programs that heavily utilize these areas. I mean, that to me personally, that's much more significant than anything else. Because now we're going from, what are we, 2,500, give or take, kids per season?
In the spring season, we were at 2,500. In the fall, we had close to 1,200 soccer participants alone.
So 1,200 soccer participants in the fall. Give or take about that same number in the spring?
A little bit less, but I would anticipate that number being higher in the spring.
Right. So how many of those 1,200 kids, plus our flag football programs, how many of those kids can we still accommodate with just you're talking Turner, Lookout, and
TK Elementary.
All right, yeah, Lookout again, TK Elementary, and possibly, as much as the school district will allow us, Gold Hill Middle School, right? For the end of this fall, the school district was very accommodating because they knew, hey, we lost fields. Yeah, I mean, we had kids going over to the high school on that practice field outside the stadium. Did we use Pleasant, Noel?
A little bit.
So we were able to figure out several
Middle
facilities,
School.
but it was just a couple of weeks that we had to get through that. Trying to go through an entire season gets a lot harder because their fields get spoken for by a lot of various organizations. One entity that we would be up against, if you will, at Gold Hill is CSA, Charlotte Soccer Academy. They've been renting those fields from the school district, Gold Hill Middle in particular, for a number of years. So we're not just going to be able to just swoop in because we're City of TKK and, oh, you get these fields, just because we asked for them. So I mean, we've got a great relationship with the school district, but I mean, this has far-reaching impacts. So you're talking just this spring alone, I would say you're probably close to $500,000, and you're probably $300,000 in lost revenue from this spring. If Independence walks. If we don't have facilities for them to go on, I don't know why they would stay.
Well, the math that I can do, we're talking $771,000.
If they left completely. I was just talking about for 1 year. Yes.
From right now.
Mhm.
And if we.
That's if we didn't replace the program with our own.
You're still losing that revenue.
I
mean, we would bring in
$771,000 would walk out the door.
Mr. Shirley, you're correct that we would start our own program, and we would bring in revenue off of that program, but then we would also have expenses related to that program, referees, uniforms, et cetera. So right now, we really don't have any direct expense on soccer other than turn on the lights when they're out there, and they're paying us $252,000 and soon to be $273,000.
So that's where I'm at with this. It's $771,000. That's the number I needed. How much are we stand to lose if we don't replace the fields and get it done expeditiously? And in my mind, we got a business like Charlotte Independence, and we don't do our due diligence to hold up our end of the contract, and they walk away with $771,000.
I think the one thing, Mayor, we're missing is we do this, spare of the moment here, and the insurance only pays $1 million. We just lost another $800,000 because we rushed it.
Well, the other thing is too, we got a $13 million park that if we don't repair it, that Crescent Community can swoop in and just say, okay, you guys are gone, see you later, and we're out $13 million.
Well, I don't think anyone's saying not repair it. It's just, do we have to do it today, or does it make sense? And I'm not saying this is the right answer. Does it make sense to do more due diligence and look at
Good option.
the source well and
I
say,
think that would
you know,
be.
is there are there 10 other bidders out there where what'd you call it, the standard price, the state price?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
This is $10 a square foot and someone's out there for $9.
$525,000 left on that contract.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone would walk away from our fields. I mean, we've spent the money on Catawba Park, whether we could afford to maintain the luxury of Catawba Park or not, we're finding out, right? Because if we didn't have that expense, then we wouldn't have the luxury of trying to figure out how to pay for it. But to make the decision from one meeting that we're going to spend $1.8 million without some due diligence, it's difficult to go to that.
I agree with Councilman Miller.
I mean, my thing is I truly would like to see, and I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I truly would like to see if that quote from Sprint and Turf if it holds water. I mean, I know that they make their own turf, but I mean, I would like to see some numbers to make sure that they're not padding it. To be honest, with you, I don't know the guys. Even if I did, I still want to get more. I mean, like at my house, I'm the world's worst. I hate paying anybody to do anything in my house because I can do it. But I'm going to get 3 quotes from anybody if they're coming into my house to work. And I look at it as Catawba Park's our house, and give them a deadline. Say, okay, you got 15 days to get us some numbers. A couple of companies, you got 5 days. There's things that come across my desk from my customers, and if we just paid these folks all this money, say you got 5 days to get me numbers. I'm getting them numbers, especially if they're a good customer of mine.
Well, if I understand correctly, Sourcewell already has the numbers. We just haven't looked at them.
That's what I'm saying.
Am I wrong there?
Well, they have numbers from
other bidders.
other companies. I have no idea who they are.
Yes,
there
from
are-
square foot numbers.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, there are local company,
and
local companies.
And I guess I may not have articulated
Sprint
it
Turf
well.
is in South Carolina. It is a South Carolina-based
Okay.
company.
I may not have
Out of Johns
articulated this well, but if Sprint Turf was chosen because we know Sprint Turf, and I'm not saying that's a bad decision, it's a good decision because they know our park and we know them, and they're clearly they're capable of putting the facility back together. That's a reasonable metrics to have chosen them. However, if we look at other bidders and compare that against Sprint Turf, and understanding that Sprint Turf made a bid based on square footage, but a lot of the work that any other bidder would have to spend to win the bid has already been done by Sprint Turf. So I'm wondering why their square footage price isn't less than what came from Sourcewell. Does that make sense? I mean, they already know the facility. They've done the work before. All the measurements and engineering and surveying and everything's already done by them. Whatever their square footage price is, shouldn't it be less?
So you're saying, I want y'all to understand that this is actually less than what their quoted prices are online because of those. It was quoted less than what it says online. So this was a do not exceed number. The 186,930, that's also stone as well, and we may not use that entire number. So they did this based on the blueprints that they already had, and it came in less than what it actually is posted online.
At Sourcewell?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that
we
answers
did
my question then.
And I apologize if I didn't explain that better, but this was a better price than what it says online because we've already
Okay,
done the legwork.
then they've probably already
And maybe I
discounted it for
misquoted that
reason.
earlier in terms of what you had asked me, but I understand, and I don't want to feel like I'm being argumentative because y'all have a very tough decision in terms of the amount of money. It's not lost on me. I would be remiss if I didn't say it one more time. I understand the taking the time and doing that type of thing. And in any other case, that is exactly what I would do it for months and months if I had to. We open registration in 2 weeks. We have a quad ball qualifier that people are going to be flying in from other states. So if we're deciding tonight to push this off for a later term, that's pushing off the start time for turf to get made. That also gets into the holidays, and now we're looking at potential delays in weather and things of that sort. So if we want to truly take that extra time, we're looking at canceling that national qualifier event because we cannot let them know 2 weeks ahead of time, 3 weeks ahead of time that we're not having it. So in this reality, if we're going to push this off and ask for more time to get potentially better or worse quotes, we are going to lose those things.
Would it be possible? I think it would help a lot. We're using Sourcewell because it's justified under the ordinance, and we have Sprint Turf, and they gave us a lesser price. But if we had 2 or 3 other ones from Sourcewell, because it's just a number, right? It's a per square foot number, right?
So you can take the per square foot
Yeah,
and then they
and
put it
plug it
together
in.
in a proposal to
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
right.
So what the proposal that we've got before us right now breaks down to $7.06 a square foot
So, but
for
are there,
187,000 square feet.
what I'm saying though is if we had 2 other ones from Sourcewell to compare them to, and be like, wow, we are getting a good deal. Or we're getting hosed here,
Well, no,
right? It would help a lot because there's a lot of eyes on, one is a ton of money, it's Catawba Park, and it's procurement.
Yeah, and we're not, I mean, I guess maybe I need to understand a little bit better. When do we get to decide not to follow the standard procurement process because something is on that list of 18 things, 18 reasons why we don't have to?
It was decided when the ordinance was written.
Right, but so,
Yeah, and Sourcewell, I mean, what they do is, it is governmental entities use Sourcewell, so it was bid out by well, basically, we're piggybacking another, and I don't know who it is, I haven't looked, but another governmental entity would have done an RFQ with all these turf companies, and it got awarded to Sprint Turf, because they were the lowest responsive bidder. And then they have agreed through this Sourcewell to honor that price for others. So it's already gone through a public, and they were the lowest responsive bidder.
but they
So-
were the lowest with a bunch of others because the award list wasn't just
So
spring turf.
It's
There
very
was
similar to.
There was 22 awarded, right?
So yes, it's very similar to state contract. So when the state contract goes out, they give, this is the price, and if there's 2, let's say there's 2 of them, that's the price that they honor. So that's what Sourcewell does, is they do the RFP for nationally. So any municipality or public entity can use that pricing. So it's
Yeah.
very similar to Omnia, or very similar to the state contract, where in Omnia, you're gonna get that price.
They get the same
regardless of
price
what-
from Sprint Turf that the other folks awarded that contract. But I think if I hear Councilperson Miller's question, how can we look at other bidders that are on that list from Sourcewell to see if Sprint Turf is really competitive?
Well, and that is a question, but my question was also more about our own process. Who gets to decide and what are the parameters to decide when something on that list can get assigned?
So not everything that we do is going to end up on state contract or on Sourcewell or
Right,
what have
so
you,
how do
right?
you decide-
So,
how-
but when they are, the rule of thumb, if you will, is to use those because they've already done that legwork for you. Like, we don't go shop around for patrol cars because they're already on state contract. The state's procurement office has already done that, right? With playgrounds that we've purchased, right? Whether it be Trailhead or whatever, there's another, I forget which number it is, Dustin, you may have it up in front of you, Omnia pricing. It's the same type thing, right? So if someone else has already bid it out, then we don't have to go through that process and we can use their bids and go from there. Prior council, when we were doing the impact fees, we have to do an impact fee study. Well, the county had just done an RFP, had selected someone to do the impact fee studies for the school district. We use their RFPs and we use the same company because council wanted to move quickly on it. They didn't want to wait and have to go through our own separate bid process, which would have looked just like the county's, right? This is the same type thing. So if there's something that we need to purchase or something like that, and we can get it on state contract, we can get it on Sourcewell without having to go through our own bid process, I mean, the general rule of thumb is that's what you do.
Got it. Charlie, you were talking about the insurance adjuster was here a while ago, and we don't have a time frame whenever we're going to get reimbursed.
Correct.
Is there a possibility, like Councilman Shirley said earlier, that we not be reimbursed or insurance doesn't pay out because it was a flood and it was a...
They've been up and they've told us from the jump that we're covered.
Okay.
That's what they have told us.
But
Time
and then
and time
to
again, that's
a
what
couple
they've
other
told us.
points. There was the amount of coverage, essentially
That I don't know
100%, 80%, nothing like that. If there's an amount and they pay, like, let's say 80%, is the difference of 20%, is that something that we would go off and get reimbursed from FEMA at that time?
That's what we'd apply for FEMA for, but
Okay.
it's talking with my counterparts around the state. FEMA's,
Just a
there's
time
no
frame.
timeline on
Okay.
that.
Okay. So essentially, whatever we spend, we're going to be reimbursed. Or at some point, we just don't know the time frame. Yeah, we just don't know the time frame.
With
Okay.
FEMA, that you just never know. I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
that would be the hope,
Mhm.
but I mean,
But I wanna
you've got a city that, yeah, they've shelled out a couple $1 million
Mhm.
after
Yeah,
a
they're gonna come
tornado
first.
4 years ago.
Mhm.
So
Gotcha. And then another thing, there was some information that was floating around out there in the universe, or I don't know if it's misinformation, but are you or any of your team members connected in any way to Spin Turf since they got the bid originally and they have the second bid that they were awarded? I want to make sure I put that out there as well.
I couldn't have told you who Sprint Turf was until Southern Builders, as our GC, brought them to Catawba Park.
Okay.
I would say for the most part,
Some people had some questions, so I want to make sure I get
they
that
were
from the horse's mouth.
They were easy to work with. The little bit that we actually worked with them, because again, they were working as a subcontractor. I didn't even know the name until they were doing our park. So, to my knowledge, I can tell you I am not, and to my knowledge, nobody on our team is tied in any type of relationship with Sprint Turf.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Do we have any further discussion on this?
I just want to thank Chaplain for explaining the source well, and Dustin, you too. Now I get it. It was a little confusing looking at it online and understanding it, but the fact that a municipality put out a bid for a turf field and 20 companies applied, Sprint Turf was the lowest, and so they agreed, we will honor this price for anybody on Sourcewell. It'd be no different if we put out our own RFP and they came back and we'd hope we got one cheaper than Sprint Turf.
And the idea is it
Save time and
should
money.
be, one, it saves time, it should be cheaper through Sourcewell.
Right.
If you can do bulk items,
Yeah.
that they're building, it's the same turf
Mm-hmm.
that's going in Kansas, that they're shipping out there, that they're putting in here. If you can follow one of those, you should get a better pricing, but it's already gone through a public vetting process, a public bidding process for a governmental entity.
And just like the vehicles, the police vehicles.
That's
Buy
just
them off there because
that
you
one's a
can't
state
get 'em
program.
We
cheaper.
can, yeah. So when we do the patrol vehicles, you have your option of Ford or Chevy, so to speak.
Yeah.
Your pricing is the same. You're just choosing which vehicle, for the most part. So if you're getting a Ford, it doesn't matter. This is what the cost of the Ford is. If you're wanting the Chevy, this is what the cost of the Chevys are.
Right.
We're wanting Sprint Turf. Here's what the cost per square foot on Sprint.
And then the advantage of going there too is most municipalities, most government agencies, I know when I was with federal government, you go there because it's already been bid, you know the price. If it's not there, then you go out and do your own
Correct.
RFQ.
Yep.
So from what you said, Councilman Hyslip, do I understand that Sprint Turf was the cheapest bidder
So
from Sourcewell on
I
this
would
project?
I would say it was either them or somebody else, but there was a price per square foot that was agreed to.
Because what I
for
thought I
these
heard
companies.
was we selected Sprint Turf because they were on the list. I didn't hear that they were the cheapest.
So the way that the bids are, and it's really similar to what Chaplain was saying, but each of them give a different type of response. So whether it's a specific type of field turf that's a discount or things of that sort, what they did is when they do the bid, that's the price that they are guaranteed to meet or do not exceed is the number that's online. So when in our situation, they have a do not exceed number that's posted on Sourcewell. They can't go that. But in our situation, because of everything that has already been, that they have all those things, they were able to give us a lower price. So some of them come up, and like I said, not all of them have per square foot. Some of them may say 10% off the going rate. That's not one that I want to consider because then you're going through the whole process all over again. So each of them are a little bit different, but that is the lowest rate that they are going to offer per the bid.
Just for the public, because I know there was some questions about, well, did you follow the ordinance? Did it go out for bid? The way the Sourcewell works, Chaplain is, some municipality somewhere, some government entity, put out a bid, and it got reviewed, and they, whatever bids came back, they chose the lowest bidder.
Right.
And then, and in this case, it was Sprint Turf. And then Sprint Turf agreed, we'll do this municipality, but we'll also offer this price to any other municipality that wants it.
Correct.
On
Lowest
Sourcewell.
responsive bidder.
At the same
It's-
square foot price.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's lowest responsive, so they're going to look at quality and
Right.
other things, but lowest responsive bid.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, council. Appreciate your consideration.
So, what is the next steps?
Hold off and check it.
We would need to have a agenda item for that. This was just a discussion.
No, and consideration of allocating reserve funds.
We didn't have any action items on it, did we not?
I couldn't find one.
Yeah, we don't have any action items on that.
Well, we can make it up. Because consideration means using it.
It's discussion and consideration, so you can make a motion if someone is inclined to make a
If we wanna
motion. or
make a
something.
motion, we can make a
Make a
motion.
motion to roll.
Charlie, what would it take for us to get something in writing that says that this is covered? I mean, it's great that somebody said that, but I was told that my dock was covered when a tree fell on it, but I still haven't been paid. So,
As far as something from Smurf?
yeah.
Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah,
Or-
is that who has said that this is a covered item?
Correct.
I mean, can we get that in an email or something, a little bit of assurance before we move forward that this is something that will be reimbursed, at least to whatever's reasonable?
Yep. We will, I will have Dora email our rep first thing tomorrow.
And I would say at that time that we get that reassurance, we can do a special meeting for that.
Or we can make a motion that includes that.
Yeah, make it a contingent. Yes, you could do a motion to allocate the funding contingent upon a written confirmation from Smurf. That
I'd
way
be
you can
com-
go ahead
I'd be
and
comfortable with that.
enact.
Comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Comfortable with that? Okay. Well, I'll need a motion to consider allocating reserve funds for the repair of the soccer facility at Catawba Park not to exceed $1.8 million with the contingency that we have in writing from Smurf a guarantee for coverage of the turf replacement.
Second. Sounds like you just
Have
made a
And
motion.
a second.
If-
Hey, look at that, huh?
That was
I'm
well,
learning
that
after a
was,
couple
that was
years
well
here.
worded. If you're okay making that motion.
Sure, we got a motion and a second, we can discuss it now.
When you're making the coverage, are you saying that you want to make sure that it is 100% covered or any coverage?
We'll never know that. I don't think we'll ever know that until it's finalized, right, Chaplain?
Yeah, they're going to look at the cost, but if you've got coverage, you're going to get a fair percentage of it back, but I don't think you can get a guarantee of the full 1.8.
If they say in writing that
And
it's
they're not
covered-
going to put that in writing.
Right.
They're going to say this is a covered loss, and
Right.
we're still reviewing. And plus, they don't even know if they think you've got 1.1, 1.8, or any other number because they're so backed up.
Right.
They just know that this is a covered loss, and then they're going to review your claim for damages, and you will submit the paperwork at that time.
Yeah,
And probably already have submitted paperwork, but they're looking at this one with a lot of others.
Going through a claim on loss from the storm, I can tell you the biggest factor that impacts the amount that's awarded is depreciation. And the park's pretty damn new.
Yeah.
So I
Really, really new.
I doubt whatever they would withhold would be significant.
Any further discussion?
Nope, I'm still in the same place.
Okay. Well, I would call the question, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, opposed? Okay. We have one opposed. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, staff, for all the available information you shared.
And as we continue forward, obviously we'll continue to keep council apprised on all other information that was discussed tonight around this topic.
Okay, moving forward, be our city manager's report. Take it away, Mr. Funderburk, please.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council. In the interest of the lateness of the hour, I'm not going to go through this entire report, but it will be posted online tomorrow. But there are a couple things that I want to touch on. First and foremost, Connie, the chat bot, is live and active, but she's still learning. So if you're not getting the answer to the question that you asked, do the thumbs down. That way Casey knows. Don't just exit out of it. There's a thing where you can thumbs up it or thumbs down it. That way we can continue to try to help teach it where to look for things. My wife may kill me for this, but she tried it out. She ran, when's the next event? I can't help you. She had to get a little bit more specific and got the answers. We got one that they were asking for dispositions. Those aren't online, so it's not going to be able to help you. Somebody else used it as a request tracker. Hey, did you know the stop sign was turned around backwards on this particular street? Well, it's not going to, that information, it's looking for information on the website. So, but we want people to use it. I think it's going to be an incredible, helpful tool. Our staff's monitoring it as well on a daily, weekly basis. So excited about that and really appreciate all of Casey's efforts there. Deer sterilization was successful, as council is aware. I think as the public is aware, they did sterilize 200 deer. And here very soon in the near future, the culling part of that wildlife program will begin. I know Joey and Gretchen have been working together on those communication pieces. Our business license module is well underway with our Evolve permit, which should help streamline folks that are doing their renewals and things like that, making that a lot simpler. So we're excited on that. And realistically, let's just talk about what's coming up. As Dustin mentioned, we've got spring sports. Registration for residents starts December 1. For everybody else, it starts January 1. The annual tree lighting, December the 5th, 6 p.m., right out here, out in front of the Glennon Center and in front of the clubhouse. So we're super excited about the holiday stuff that Caroline and our folks have. The mailbox, Santa's Magic Mailbox, has made its return back to City Hall. Please, if you want to write the head elf a letter, need it by December 13th. Make sure, and this is for the parents, make sure the names and the return addresses are legible in those letters so we can make sure that Santa's able to respond back to them. The river access at the boat launch has been reopened. Big thank you to Duke Energy's contractor, Clearview Demolition, for helping us with that. They did a lot of the work down there. River Keepers did a lot of work down there. So, but the river access has reopened. And then two other Christmas type things that I want to make sure everybody's aware of. One is, and this is probably one of my favorite things that we do, Holiday with the Heroes. That's going to be on December 14th. It is a private event, but if you as a community member are compelled and want to help participate, reach out to Sergeant Bowers, Sergeant Maggie Bowers with our police department. She's heading up those efforts and can tell you how to donate. But it's a great time. Our police officers and firefighters take kids whose families are in need, and they take them Christmas shopping, and then they help them wrap the presents and things like that, and it's absolutely amazing. So we got that coming up on December 14th. And last but certainly not least, I'm not going to mention the Marina Parade because Mr. Denton already covered that. But Santa will be here in the city, not only for our tree lighting, but going to be coming around one more time, checking that list on December the 21st. Thank you to our fire department for giving him a lift around town. So December 31st is Santa in the Cave. December the 14th is our Holiday with the Heroes. And again, we kick the holiday season off on December 5th at 6 o'clock here at the Glennon Center with the tree lighting. There's a lot more in this report. We'll have, council, we'll get this email to y'all in the morning as well as get it posted online. And Mayor, that'll conclude my report for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Thunderberg, which will bring us to our council comments. And as always, I will throw it over to you, Councilman Carter.
Thank you, Mayor Gray. I'll be pretty quick. I want to thank the residents that are here, still in attendance tonight. Thank you guys so much. For those of you that are still watching online or are watching this later on, thank you very, very much. For the residents that spoke, again, thank you for your comments. Your words are heard, and we do take them into consideration. I want to move over to the proclamation for Arbor Day as my favorite part of the evening. In regards to donating a tree to Lieutenant Galloway, who passed away a couple of months ago, her legacy will live on in our city, and she will always be remembered in our community. So I'm so glad that we were able to do that for her and recognize her. I also like to recognize people in the community and someone who's done something positive and made a positive impact. I don't want to recognize just one person. I want to recognize the whole group that worked on Service Saturdays, all the individuals, all the businesses that donated their time and their materials for everything that's going on. And I also want to make a special recognition to Mayor Gray for putting all that stuff together. What he does, he has one of the biggest hearts that I've ever seen, and the way that he works with the community and people behind the scenes and shows, he wears his emotions on his sleeves, but he also really helps and cares about the community. And thank you for everything that you do, because there's so many things behind the scenes that people don't know that he does, and I just want to make sure I recognize that, and you do an awesome job. The last thing, but great job, I was like, the last thing is Thanksgiving's coming up next week, you guys. So enjoy time with your yeah, Thanksgiving's next week, right? I saw Scott's face like, what? Yeah, next week. Enjoy time with your family and friends. But, you know, make sure that you remember to be thankful for what you have. A lot of us here in TKK are pretty financially stable. We have a roof over our heads. We don't really have to worry about where food comes from. We don't have to worry about a lot of that kind of stuff. But just be thankful what we have, and just we enjoy our community, and just say thanks to those around you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilman Carter. Councilman Hyslip, if you would, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make it short. Thanks to all the staff, fire, rescue, tonight. Dustin, Caroline, thanks for coming up and recognize those people. Dustin, thanks for taking all the hard questions. We were hammering you pretty good there, but thank you. Kinger Homes, appreciate you coming out and giving an update to the public and to us. Excited about that. I want to give a shout out to the Shore Club. They hosted our Veterans Day dinner. Did a great job, so thank you to John and all the staff over there. And finally, there was an election a couple weeks ago. You may remember, TKK had over 80% turnout, so thank you for voting. That's a really good number. So going for 90 next time, though. All right, that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hyslip. Councilman Shirley, if you would, please, sir.
Yep, just piggyback off of what Councilman Hyslip said. I wanted to thank everyone for doing their civic duty and their privilege of voting. And I also want to give a special thanks to all the folks that volunteered and helped at the precincts. They spent a long day. They put a lot of training into being available to make sure that the election process is fair and it's available for us. And I want to thank them for participating in doing that. Charlie, Connie the chat box, was she named after the rogue cow that ran through TKK?
Steve, we got the logo. Yes, we decided to have a little fun with it.
That's
Give it a
pretty
name.
awesome.
So,
I
yeah.
love that.
Named after Connie the cow.
I'm going to take a page out of Councilman Carter's book here, and I'm going to recognize somebody that does a great job for us as a city and us as a council team. Never gets recognized, never wants to be part of the spotlight, but I'm going to make her part of the spotlight tonight and just give her a special thank you for all that she does to make this process seamless every single month. The communication is always fantastic. She's always available whenever we throw her a curveball. She's super responsive. And Casey O'Brien, I know you're sitting in the back and you're probably blushing right now, but thank you for everything that you do for us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Shirley. Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem Miller, please, if you would.
I thought that our November, or actually I guess it's October, was pretty fabulous with Booze and Ghouls and Pumpkin Palooza, and that picture that Caroline showed us that she said highlighted our community and our uniqueness. I actually wrote that down before she said that, so it was kind of cool that she felt the same way, and that's what that was the purpose, and that was the result of what that work did. So Caroline's not here anymore, but thank you for the creativity and the passion that went into doing that and creating something that was really special for our community and something that's new. And I think that the third year for Booze and Ghouls will definitely make it a tradition, and Pumpkin Palooza will get there too. The conversation that came up about the trees and the crosswalks, I've started to see more and more concern about crosswalks and little pocket bikes and scooters and all of that. And I don't know what we can and can't do and what is an opportunity. But if there are opportunities to trim up trees, if there are opportunities to be proactive in doing that, I think it's certainly warranted and would be really appreciated by those families that do use those crosswalks all the time. Christmas holidays, I think outside of our 4th of July, that's probably one of our most defining seasons. So I hope that if you are new to our city, you get to enjoy some of those opportunities. And if you've been here for a long time, that you go back and re-enjoy them, because it definitely is one of those defining times for our city. The gentleman that were here from Windhaven, it is difficult to really hear everything that they had to say. If there's a way to follow up to know what it was that they
concerned
wanted.
about traffic and safety around the business area of Windhaven.
Yeah.
Is
And-
what their concerns are.
And I know
but
one of
yes,
them brought up
we've-
fencing and all that. I wish that it was easier to really hear everything that they were saying. So I don't know if we can ask. Do you
As
have it in
long as they
writing?
put their contact info on that, on the sign-up sheet, we can definitely reach out to them.
Okay. And then lastly, our chat with council for this month is actually just this week. It's on Thursday, November 21st. We will meet at the police station training room. No one is to be arrested that night. We're going to behave ourselves. But it's kind of exciting that it's November. It's going to be our 11th month. Well, we haven't done it every single month, but pretty much our 11th month this year. So, woo-hoo, we're going to finish our first year. And that's it. Thank you. Oh, I do say, that was contentious, the conversation, Dustin. You do an excellent job, and I just want you to know that I do appreciate it. I feel like I'm doing my job when I ask the questions, and I want to get to a real comfort place when I'm making a decision to spend money. So I appreciate you standing up and answering those questions and for answering my emails and all that. So thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor Pro Tem. So, Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem, sorry. Doctor, I've been saying that for a while. Okay, so then it comes to me. So December 5th, 6 p.m., Glennon Center Pavilion. Please make sure that you bring your kids and bring yourselves and expect to have a good time. Unbuckle your seatbelt, relax. We're going to have choirs singing carols. We're going to have hot chocolate. We're going to have, I think Santa Claus is supposed to show up. I talked to him the other day. He's going to take off the jams and the tank top and actually put on the red suit again and get back to it. So he's coming to see us. I told him to lay off of our deer because, you know, he tried to recruit some last year and he didn't want to recruit enough. So we have to lay off of those guys this year. But that's Thursday, December 5th. Come out. We've got that's a big time for our city. I know we all enjoy it and have a good time with it. So come out and help us light the tree. To our folks, Service Saturdays that came out last Saturday, I really appreciate everything that everybody did. And just hope for a big turnout on our next endeavor. But I appreciate your comments, Councilman, but I can't take credit. That would be Annie Gray that put all of that together. Behind every really good thing that I've ever done, Annie Gray is kind of behind it. So she's pretty awesome. So I just want to give her the proper shout out that she deserves because she did. She pushed and kept pushing until it happened, and so I want to give her kudos for that tonight. But not to take away from all the work that everybody did. We had a lot of blisters, had a lot of sore arms, sore backs, but it really turned out well, and I appreciate everybody coming out to help us with that. And in that, if you have a nominee that needs to be looked at for a Service Saturdays project, please get that to us. We're taking all kinds of newcomers all the time, and are really happy to try to help everyone in TK that we can, because that's what we do. We are here to help folks, and we're here to help guide folks and put the tires to the road, or rubber to the road, as it were. But just want to say thanks to everybody once again. Thanks to all of our staff members. Our guys were out this week just doing all they could do to get our Christmas lights up, get everything going for the city the way that everybody has come to expect. It is not a small feat whatsoever, and I appreciate all of our staff and everything that they do to help us get Christmas underway, because Christmas is a huge deal here in the city. Again, I'd like everybody to keep our folks in their prayers. Western Carolina, we're going to go to bed and we're going to have heat. We're going to go to bed and have a roof. We're going to go to bed and have running water and a hot shower. There are a lot of the folks in the Western Carolina, in the mountains, that are not going to have a shelter that's acceptable for colder temperatures. If you have a camper that's just laying around and you feel like you might want to donate it somewhere, take it up to the mountains. There's a lot of folks that could use it. Vans, buses, whatever you can come up with. If they're just laying around, please get with us, and we'll help you find a place and help you find a avenue to donate those with. But in that, just keep those folks in your prayers every chance you get to help them. And then with Thanksgiving coming up, I say it every year. I'll say it again this year. Everybody look to your neighbors. All of us have neighbors that they don't have family coming in. They don't have friends coming in, and they're probably going to spend the holidays by themselves. Well, if they're your neighbor, don't make them spend the holiday by themselves. Reach out, give them a hug, and say, hey, why don't you come over and have some turkey with me? We'd love to have you. That's the TK way to do things. Reach out to your neighbors, make sure that they're taken care of, and make sure that they've got at least some friends and neighbors to spend the holidays with. So just want to say thanks again to the council. I know it's a late night. Thanks again to all of our staff that hung out with us, and the gallery that hung out with us. Thank you, folks. I appreciate you. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.